Well, every road I see leads away from me. There's not a single one that leads me home. The road keeps saying, friend, come see what's round the bend. So is it any wonder that I roam? All the places I have been keep calling me back again. Down in the pines I hear the cold winds blow. My heart keeps telling me, foot loose and fancy free, and the road goes by and calls me as it goes. Well, maybe somewhere there's a someone waiting with a smile, and maybe there'll be some place I can stop and rest a while. And maybe you weren't meant to be just a rolling stone, and there's a road to travel on that leads you back to home. I lost sound, dude. You forgot.
Oh, I forgot to turn my microphone back on. I was about to say there, which way are we going with this thing?
You're in charge. You're on the left.
I know. I keep forgetting that on this one.
I forgot. I got here so late. I forgot to move you over there.
And you're the one that runs this.
Yeah, and I was late.
Holy Moses. Well, anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming on here tonight. Wasn't sure if we were doing one tonight or not. Some stuff going on, and I'm not going to get into it. Garrett can get into it if he wants to.
Let's just enjoy the evening.
Yeah, let's just enjoy the evening. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming on. This is just an impromptu history night. Ask me anything. We might run for an hour. We might run for an hour and a half, however long Garrett's got to run tonight. I don't have to go to bed till 4 o'clock this morning, so I'm good. I can go as long as I want.
I'm going to have to go at some point because tomorrow morning I start filming a series.
Oh, is it going to be that special series we all been waiting on?
It is off the ground, ready to fly.
I still think you need to go all the way back to the Charlottesville and just do the history of the Springfield.
That's going to be part 2, the prequel.
Oh, okay. All righty. So, well, as typical, once we kind of get an intro going here, Garrett will read off. And are we running on both channels tonight?
Yes. And we have 40 people in between the two.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, Garrett usually goes through and reads the comments because being that he's kind of been the moderator, and I could pick this back up now if I wanted to because I've got a computer. But when I was in Wyoming, I didn't have the computer. I couldn't run it through StreamYard. So Garrett's been the moderator for this for, what have we been doing this for, about a year now?
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. Well, if you count on the other channel, we've been doing it for like 3 years.
That's true. Yeah, this setup, the way we're doing it here, yeah, we've been doing this for just a little over a year. Well, just about a year. Because it come down to is when I'm up there in Wyoming, I had my phone. I couldn't run a computer. I could have, but I didn't have my computer with me. So Garrett's been kind of the moderator and runner, and I've just been kind of the face of it. So, but anyway, I'm going to let him run through the chats here.
Well, you're the brains of it.
I wouldn't go that far.
The OG.
I'm the talking head.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, so tonight we have Louisiana Gray said, we'll see you there, Duke. That was actually at 7:30. Diane Houston says, howdy, y'all. Stephen M. Mann said, I'll be doing a homage of sorts to 11 Bang Bang's Name This Gun. It's called What Is It? And Can I See What Is Out of Place? And can see what's out of place. Chris, that's interesting. Chris Klein said, hello, all. Kodak Tackman's in, has howdy, fellas. IWS Bull 1 says howdy. Kodak Tackman said, howdy over here, too. Oh, he's on 2 channels. Jeremy P says, hi, everybody. Brandon Birch said, evening, gents. Louisiana Gray said, it's a dookie night. By the BNRO says, hey, guys. James Garland says, finally caught one live. Louisiana Gray said, I'm with you for the full ride. Pronounce that, Duke.
Chef Emenji.
Hola.
I don't know if that's 2 names put together or what that is, but that's not a word I'm familiar with.
Snapper says, hi, guys. The Saboteur 45's in, actually. He's here early this time.
Yeah, usually he comes in there at the end. What's going on, Snapper? Or Saboteur?
Number 1, Big Bear says, hello, everyone. Travis Lynn says, hi, everyone. Clessy says, hey, guys, love the shows. I'm excited for the new video, Garrett. Oh, it won't be out probably. When I do a video like this, it usually takes me a week and a half to edit after I get the filming done. So I'm going to give it about 2 weeks. It'll be here. I haven't decided if I want to do it on a Wednesday night premiere or a Sunday regular video and just do it that way. Saboteur said it's shift change.
Ah, gotcha. Well, speaking of that new video, I saw the short of the firing of that particular video subject. And was it just me, or looked like something come flying out of the end of that muzzle and flop down? Did you shoot a water puddle, or what was that?
Oh, I shot a water bottle full, a Gatorade bottle full of mud water.
Oh, okay, yeah, because it's like you see the shoot, and then it looks like something flopped out there, and I'm like, what the heck was that? I thought maybe he's using cotton wadding or something.
Nope, no, it's 60 grains of powder and just I thought it was a 5.85 mini ball, but when I cast it, it come actually out to a 5.90. And so that's a big mini ball.
Yeah, that is that aluminum mold.
Yeah.
Those aluminum molds. When you're doing round balls for revolvers, it don't matter, but when you're doing conical bullets, they do oversize them.
Okay. My camera's messing up. I'm supposed to say hello to Zach and thank you for saying you like my hat. You can write in the comments, you know. Okay. Sorry. Sister's new, sister's friend. He's leaving now. I got to fix my camera here right quick. Go ahead.
Hey, it's fixed now.
Oh, it is, isn't it? I got to get a new camera. It's been doing that a lot here lately.
Maybe wipe the lens down.
It says, Chef, my name is Emil with the last initial of my last name. Okay. Question here. Brandon Birch said, question for Garrett. Yeah, well, this is Duke's show, but we'll do it to go.
Hey, Garrett can answer questions too.
How many grains of black powder do you find works best for 12-gauge slugs? I just finished up loading 25 brass holes using a 545 grain Foster slug sitting on 100 grains. My personal 12-gauge load for round ball or slug, if you can fit it, is 80 grains. I like 80 grains. It's a nice light load. If I want to go higher, I mean, I could, but if I want to go higher, probably be in a rifle. But yeah, 100 grains is a good load. I like 80 grains. It's nice on me, nice on the gun usually. Not that most 12 gauges can't handle that, but I get better results with pumpkin loads or round ball slugs with 80 grains. Let's put it that way. Right. Okay, Chef said, I'm getting into black powder and it's a love-hate relationship.
That start off, it is. But once you get used to it, the cleaning is the part that I always hated.
Yep. I'll give you go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, you got to get in there, especially, I mean, if you're shooting it pretty regular, I don't worry too much about the fouling on the inside, but if you're shooting it once and then putting it away for a year, I always clean it on the inside just so it doesn't rust. But otherwise, yeah, shooting it's fun. That's the fun part.
Yeah. I will say this, after We were lucky enough, I think both you and me probably started before the internet age shooting black powder, right? For the most part.
No, actually, I got into it because I started watching Mike Bellevue's movies.
Oh, okay. Well, what I found was the way I'd always been told how to do it. Everybody else on the internet did it a different way, and their way was the only way. Mm-hmm. So if you're just getting into it and you find it's kind of hard to find out what you want to do it the way that works for you. That's all I can say. There's no magical way to do it all one way.
When you get on the internet, especially if you start filming it and putting videos out there, you're going to find out that there's about 6,000 60-year-olds out there that have all done it this way for the last 40 some odd years, and it's the perfect way of doing
it. Yeah. Dawn dish soap, hot water, ballistol. There's 87 different ways to clean. Soak the barrel, scrub the barrel, just use a patch. Just do it the way it works for you. It's not that complicated, really.
Find a way that's easy. And you know what? The way I shoot's pretty darn easy because I use the wads, and I've got all the guys. I've never used wads or lube in my life. Well, you know what? When I use wads, I only have to scrub that barrel with 3 patches, 2 wets and a dry, and that thing is squeaky clean because them wads actually scour that barrel when they go out.
Yep, they do a good job, and people are always yelling at me, use grease. The grease is the historically accurate way. And I'm kind of like, yes and no.
Yeah, to an extent, yeah.
But it's also the hardest way to clean the gun afterwards.
Leaves the biggest mess.
In my opinion.
Yeah, no, I put grease in, especially on a hot day when you get to shooting that grease, you got to get a really high wax concentration when you start making your own grease to get it to stay put. I think I was up to 80% beeswax to lamb's tallow.
Here lately, I've gone 100% beeswax. Just
might as well.
I gotta use it for lube.
Yeah,
especially in cartridges.
Traditional too. 100% beeswax is traditional lube.
Yep. Frankfurt Arsenal is bayberry wax and a Japanese wax that I don't remember what it was. I can find berry wax, but it's expensive, so I'm still just using beeswax.
Yeah, the Japanese wax. What the heck was that? That was
it had to do with varnish, but it was not varnish, obviously. But I gotta remember. Varnish. I just read about it last night again. Okay, let's see. But where were we at? Okay, Brandon Birch said, I'll click on these tonight. We got plenty of time. Currently setting up to play around with a poor man's double rifle.
Those are fun.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time with double barrel smoothbore flintlock and
depends on side by side or a swivel breech.
Yeah. Have you messed with a true double rifle, like an African style rifle?
Me, no. No, I know some guys that have them, but they, especially when they have the sight center between the 2 barrels, you can only sight it for so far a distance for a 0. And after that, one barrel's going to start going wide because if anybody's not familiar
regulation,
with the barrels will cross when you have double anything. That's why over-under shotguns some consider to be better than side-by-side shotguns, because at a certain distance it goes.
Yep. Now I've spent some time with over-under rifle shotgun combos.
Yep.
And those are.
I shot a few of those. Those are nice. I like them.
Yeah. Let's see. Todd B says, "Hey G, I love the short video on the first Allen conversion Springfield with rimfire round. We need a full video on that gun and ammo." Well, I will tell you this right now. I'm going to leave the ammo making to Dr. Durrell Shepard. Go check out his video on his Miller conversion. He shows you how to make it. I spent the last 2 days making it, 3 days now. Finally think I've got it perfected. I still have a little bit of a hiccup because the 28 gauge brass, for some reason, even though it should catch that rim, the extractor's slipping by the rim every now and then. But I'm to the point now where I'm ready to go. Ethan's leaving the channel for some military stuff for an extended period of time here on Friday or Saturday. So tomorrow morning, we're filming it one way or the other. Hot or cold, rich or poor, good or bad, we're filming it first thing in the morning when the ground's frozen. We can go out there. And then I already have part of the actual talking segment of that first episode filmed. I'm still working on finishing the other side of the studio. So I hope to start filming the rest of it next week, the talking portion, and have it up within the next 14 days or so. Zachary Randall says, "Hi, Garrett." Hi, Zachary.
I think everybody's here to see you tonight.
I don't think so. Stephen M said, Brandon looking at the 72 150 Mukwa Express. Louisiana Gray said, I agree. Cleaning is the worst part. I enjoy making my own powder, my own lead, and my own cast, but I do hate the cleaning.
Yep. And cleaning a rifle is not that bad. Cleaning a musket's not that bad. When you clean a revolver, the cylinder is what gets you.
Yep.
But you got to do 6 of them.
And a cap and ball revolver is worse than a black powder cartridge revolver by a long shot.
Yeah.
But did you ever got to the point kind of where, and I've been there in a way from, it's not something I stick with, but there'll be times in my life where cleaning is just a part of the experience. And then there'll be times where I'm enjoying it, being with the gun, working with the gun. Then there'll be times where I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah. No, it definitely, yeah. It hits you in a wave. But yeah, cleaning, it's just, yeah, it's not the best part.
Okay.
Especially if it's a deep, deep clean.
All right. We got a question here. Zachary Smith asks, what is your recommendation for round ball molds when they don't have Lyman Lee molds in stock for 69 caliber musket?
Try Track of the Wolf. They have some of those traditional ball molds on there, round ball molds. And they're going to be spendy, but they're usually iron, and for the most part, most of them are really, really decent. They aren't too far off on, you know what I'm trying to say. The molds come together, line up right. But yeah, I've got a 69 caliber Lee mold, and that's as big as they get. And I wasn't real impressed with it.
Well, for the 69 cal musket, I don't think he means a 69 cal ball. Maybe he does, but if it's a 369,
it was 680 something.
Mm-hmm. If you're looking for historical accuracy, it's actually a 64.5, basically. But let me call Ethan. Let's see if he answers right quick, and he can give you the flat out answer.
One thing on the Lee molds, I don't like round ball molds with the Lee molds, because if your lead, it gets a little hard, it'll tear that mold up every time. Because that ball will rotate inside the mold when you hit the sprue, and it just tears up the mouth of it.
Hello?
Can you hear us?
What?
Can you hear Ethan on there, Duke? You're live.
Yeah, I can hear him.
Okay. There's a question on the chat here, Ethan. What is the best recommendation for round ball molds when they don't have Lyman or Lee molds in stock? He's looking for a mold for a 69 caliber musket.
I went with ballmolds.com, and that's mold spelled MOULDS. He has anything from, I believe, 22 caliber molds all the way up to cannon molds. They're single cavity, but yeah, they are ballmolds.com. It's in England. So that's what I use, because I cast 0.638, and I got them from him, and they're pretty good mold. And they go, and the increments are in 1/1000 of an inch. So if you want a 636 or a 638 or something like that, you can get them from there. You can custom order them.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right. Bye. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah. So, yeah, the one he said, Track of the Wolf. But what I was getting at when I was talking about my 69 caliber mold for the Brown Bass was with those Lee round ball molds. If you get any kind of lead that's got any kind of hardness in your mix, it will tear up. And even just soft lead will eventually do it. But they tear up the mouth of that mold because that round ball rotates inside of that mold when you hit the sprue out. So just be aware of that when if you're going to buy a Lee. And that's just because they use aluminum blocks. Steel blocks are better, but they're more expensive.
Well, I've only had one aluminum mold start to do that to me, and it was actually not a round ball mold. It was it was actually for a 357 158 grainer round nose. But yeah, it did that same thing. It got to where it was chipping out the side of the lip right there, and leaving a little lip on it.
Right, go in, yeah.
Yeah, but the one thing I have against all steel molds, which they're fine, but it take me the other day, I was casting those mini balls with it. It takes 30 casts to get that thing hot enough to make a good
you know how I do it?
Cast. How's that?
I take the mold because I got a bottom pour. I don't know what you guys are using. I have a bottom pour mold or furnace. So what I do is when I'm melting down the lead, I just stick the mold right in there on top of that lead.
Yeah. Get her good.
And I just let it sit there. And when I can walk up and pull that mold out and it comes out perfectly clean, then I know it's at the right temperature, because if it doesn't come out perfectly clean, it'll have lead adhered to it because that lead cools and sticks to it. Once it's at the temperature that the lead don't do that, you're ready to start going. But I always throw it in the pot with the lead, and that way, otherwise, like Garrett said, it takes 30 some odd casts to get it to where it's a temperature, and you want to keep going. You don't want to take too big a break. If you have to take a break and walk away from it, just stick it back up in top in that hot lead, and that'll keep it hot.
The other thing about steel is like this one right here. It's been sitting here by my desk for the last year and a half. I haven't been paying attention. She's starting to rust. I need to get it cleaned up.
Dip it in a little beeswax when you get done with it every time, and beeswax will burn off and give you some flux when you heat it up.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what this one's for. I remember taping it up, but I don't remember why. But yeah, I got one there. Handles are a whole different issue. Actually, I just got some. I just ordered a 6 gang, or Caleb did, a 6 gang for a 52 caliber, because that custom 53 caliber, or it's a 54 caliber 1803 Harper's Ferry.
Yeah.
The Turkey Creek 18. Well, he built it exactly to spec. In the originals, even though they call them 54s, they're actually closer to 53s. Right. And they got different rifling, like really sharp, that rifling in them. So we wound up having to go out and get an actual 52 caliber mold, but I did get a 6 gang mold because I used to use all 2 gang molds until I got tired of spending hours and hours and hours casting lead. Is that what you used, a 2 or a 6?
I use a 2. Well, when you get to them big musket balls, they're all singles.
Well, this one's a 52, but it's not big musket ball.
I'm talking obviously. Like 60. Yeah. Once you get above 54, they go to single ball molds. A lot of them do, especially the Lee aluminum blocks. But no, all mine were doubles for the smaller round ball.
Yeah. I imagine a 6 gang 75 cal mold would get really hot really fast.
Geez, it would be 18 inches long.
Well, Caleb's a 75 Lee is no, his is actually a true 69, but it's a 69 Lee and it's a 2. But it is a big mold.
Yeah, okay. They must have, because when I got it, 69 was only a single ball mold.
Yeah.
But that's been pushing 10 years. No, not quite 10 years. 8 years. Whenever I got that brown best is when I got it. Speaking of which, I have a ball mold for that brown best. I don't remember if I gave your brother or not.
Yeah. Well, he's wanting to know if you care if he joins in.
He can come in. I don't care.
Okay. I'll send him a link here right quick.
Send him a link. Just tell him check his email and go to the sent messages.
I've tried to do that. It doesn't work on the same email system on.
Okay.
It's weird. Yeah, I got to send him a picture of it, and he's got to type it in. All
So
right.
if anybody's wondering, yes, Garrett has to send me invites to my own chat.
Well, I have to do it for Snapper too, and everybody. Well, what a lot of people don't realize is running these chats costs a fairly considerable amount of money. Actually, running StreamYard with like we don't have the logo up here like a lot of people do. You'll see, we have the backgrounds, we have the intro
That was
videos.
the other reason we did it this way was because you were paying for it.
And it does cost some money. It costs $25 a month to keep it up like this. But since you're using it and Snapper's using it and we're using it. Oh yeah, if we wanted to get really fancy and have options of having 50 people on screen at once, we could do it for like $150 a month. We get all kinds of options.
$5 a year. I didn't know you was paying $25.
No.
Now I feel like I owe you something.
You can get a deal. You can get a deal and go I think it's $350 a year if you pay for the year altogether.
Oof.
But we haven't done that. But yeah, that gets rid of the logo. It makes it where we can set it up, use intro videos, and we can have 9 people on at a time, and well, we can have 10, I guess, right now. But the way it works out pretty well because we all use it, so that's why we do it the way we do it. It's not a big deal that way. Let's see. Uncle Chaw said, I used to overclean my muzzleloader with water and would get more rust than if I hadn't cleaned it.
Pyrex. I used to get Pyrex. Oh my goodness. But no, Garrett can testify to this. Caleb can testify to it. Ethan wasn't here for the second time, so he can't testify to it. But my single action army fired black powder in August of 2021 and wasn't cleaned until June of 2022, and it wasn't that rusty and ran just fine after a year sitting there with black powder in it.
Yep. And we ran out and shot another 100 rounds through it.
Yeah. And
then you cleaned it.
Then I put the sucker in my safe. I let it sit in there for 2 months. I opened the safe the other day, and there must have been some moisture somewhere along the line because now my gun is rusty. And that was my Pride Joy 7.5-inch gun that was all beautiful, and I was letting it just kind of the bluing wear, get holster wear and stuff with, and now it's rusty. I'm not a happy camper. It's surface rust. I rubbed it off, but I noticed it's starting to grow back. So
that is a nice gun.
Cimarron did me well.
Yeah, I really think that might be the way to go with that particular gun. I really do like that Model P with a 7.5-inch barrel because I've shot the Pieta Frontier with 7.5-inch barrel. I like it too, but there's a lot of people like the Pietas more, but I kind of enjoyed yours more, just to be honest.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, the Pieta Frontier, the Cimarron ones are more historically accurate because this one has a laser etched cross hatch on the hammer, and on the Pietas they're hammered.
Well, I'll tell you this though, on that Pieta, either the Great Western 2 or the Frontier, they're great guns. They're really light hammers and everything, which is fine, I guess. But the main issue I have with them is they don't feel as smooth, even though they're light. Like you feel every little hiccup going through that hammer.
But they are very close, and in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if parts weren't manufactured in the same factory for both.
Yeah.
I'm
Ethan. Don't touch anything that can get us in trouble.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not. I have it out of frame.
Okay.
Or it was in frame for all of about a half a second.
Oh, what? A pipe?
That was just an iron tube.
Yeah.
That was an iron tube.
Okay, so we do have a troll sometimes that comes on here and turns us in for random things. On my side anyway, not on Duke's.
Bings, this is my channel. This is what I think about trolls. Oh crap, I forgot we're on 11 Bang Bang too.
Yeah. There's a lot of people watching, so be careful. Uncle Chaw said, okay, we did that.
Well, here's an idea. I'll just turn my camera off.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, you're good. As long as it's out of frame.
You can't turn your camera off. You don't have an avatar.
Oh, well, you can still hear me.
Turn your camera on. There you go. All right.
Raise your camera so the field of view is you got more wiggle room.
There you go.
Yeah, now I can do my work down here and not be seen.
Well,
All
you
right.
still see what's down below there.
That's
Do what?
nice.
You got your hand on a vise.
Yeah. There.
There you go. There you go.
One of these days we're going to go to Rumble, and this won't be an issue at all.
One of these days.
Yeah.
By the way, we got 61 people on Tales of the Trails. That's pretty good.
There we go. Yeah, that is doing pretty good. If I didn't scare you off with my ode to the trolls there.
Drew B says, is it normal for the walker to have 2 clicks? Dude.
So you either have a perfectly timed walker or something's wrong.
You have a perfectly timed walker that's not going to be perfectly timed for very long because it's so well timed.
So that is the thing about walkers is, and really the early Colts that have the hole and the post for the bolt stop, they had to be perfectly timed because whenever
keep it out of frame.
Comes around, that post has to drop
thing
into that hole at the time that hole is right there. And so, yeah, a lot of them were timed where they would come off of that camera right there at the perfect timing. So if you've got a 2-click walker, that means you're perfectly timed. My walkers, if you go super slow, are 3-click, but you have to go super slow. Otherwise, I messed with them until where they timed where that thing comes up just about the time it's lined up in the hole. There's a little bit of a peen. But that was a problem.
If it's that close, just watch. You might be going out of time soon.
Yeah, as it ages and wears, it will go out of time. But that was so once they started getting into the 3rd model Dragoon, well, even the 2nd model, it was actually the 2nd model Dragoon, excuse me, the baby Dragoon, the 1851 Navy, as they went away from that whole post system to the square notch. And then the square notch with the lead, because with the square notch with the lead, that gives you some more wiggle room when it comes to the timing on that. And here's the thing with timing. If everything is perfectly timed, 100% perfectly timed, it's going to break down faster.
Yep. Because stuff is going to give and stuff is going to wear. You want it to have a little room.
So to prove my point on that, and we're going to jump ahead about 100 years in firearms development, World War II is going on. And as you all know, in World War II, they didn't produce cars. They didn't produce a lot of things because everything went into war production. Singer sewing machines went into war production. They were given the task of building 1911s. I think they made 2,000 of them. And the government said, these things are too perfect. You are going to build bomb sites. Now, you'd think an absolute perfect 1911 is great until you get into places like Normandy Beach, the Pacific Islands, where there's sand and grit. When things are perfect and then you get a little dust in there, it throws it all to hell.
Yeah, it's and that kind of, because Masad Ayub actually released a video today, and every time anybody at Wilson Combat talks about this, people jump all over him. And his thing is, if you've got a tightly built 1911 high end, don't drop the slide on an empty chamber, which I kind of knew that for a long time. And a lot of people are like, if you can't drop the slide on the empty chamber, that gun's too fragile. And he's like, no, every gun is designed to strip a shell out of that and slow it down. But what he said is these high-end guns especially are so tight that it's very easy. They're not necessarily fragile, but it is easier to knock things apart in there by slamming that slide forward.
Yeah, I don't even like slamming the slide forward on my cheap Tassos 1911. I say it's cheap. It's the best gun I've ever had, I've ever owned for semi-automatics. I don't like letting the slide slam home on that because, just like Garrett said, it's got a bullet that's slowing down that action.
Yep.
So
That's
it's kind of like
what you're talking about.
Shut your car door with all the windows closed. Then turn around and shut your car door with all the windows open. There is a noticeable difference. Trust me,
Yep.
I noticed that when my Jeep, when I shut the door on that Jeep, and I thought the whole thing was going to fall apart.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Duke, I think I've been with you when we put that Jeep through a little more than shutting the doors with the windows shut.
You know what? I think that's when I broke my Jeep. Because I just me and my uncle dumped about $500 into that thing, fixing it here recently. It was either then or when I was in the Laramie Mountains about 4 or 5 months before that, and I was going through some rocky country, and I hit a hole that was a little bit not as big as that hole in Kansas, but it was a good sized hole, and there was rocks in that thing.
I gotta say, I was impressed.
I was sitting there, like, Ethan's about to have a panic attack. He's like, we're gonna have to go to the top of the hill to call Karen. And I'm like, we ain't stuck yet. And I put her in low.
That's the rule.
And it walked right out of that hole. I dumped the whole front, not the whole front. I pretty much, if you draw a line right through the middle of me in that driver's seat, that's what was on the dirt in the front tire. The one back tire was all the way up in the air, and this other tire is just hanging down in this hole with probably another 8 feet below it to go.
Yep. I think there's only like 2 wheels on the ground.
And I'm glad it was 2 opposite wheels, because if it was 2 front wheels, we'd have been in deep doo-doo.
Yeah.
Kodak Tackman said, black powder firearms, it helps me to season the steel with a good lube.
Yeah, you can season them, but if you clean them like I do, that seasoning is going to get stripped every time you shoot it. So,
Yep. Stephen M. Mann said he's using 825 and 900 grain bullets for his Muckwa Express. IWS Bull 1 said, I would love to have Express double rifle. Jay Wheeler's in. He said, what's up, y'all? Hi, Jay.
How's it going? Looks like your mom showed up after my little tiff, so.
Yeah. Kodak Tackman says, of course, good seasoning happens over time. Kent says, good evening, good people. Number one Big Bear says, what gun did Sean Connery use in the movie League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
He had a big elephant gun double rifle.
I think it's a Purdy. I think it's kind of famous that it was I might be wrong, but I think it's a Purdy.
I looked it up long ago. I can't remember what it was, but it was a good sized elephant gun. Yeah. Trying to think if it was a 500 nitro or if it was a 4 bore.
I'm not sure. I just know that was a big deal in the gun community for a while. Jay Wheeler said, Duke, you still doing holster work? Haven't seen any from you in a while. We get this every week.
Not taking big orders. Basically, it's orders that people are still interested, but my leather work has not been going real fast because I kind of, to be honest with you, I made it a business. I should have kept it as a hobby, and I got burned out.
Yeah.
Too much going on. I still do leather work, but I decided I'm taking a break from it. I don't know when I'll start back up again. I owe some people some holsters. I got some that my friend Sam, he's got a few that I got to finish up. I've got some for Garrett. I've got to finish up. I got one for Snapper. I got to finish up. Lone Dragoons got a couple that I got to cut out for him. So I've got a bunch laying around, but the other thing that burnt me out on it is you have people that come on here emailing me every week, where's my holster? Where's my holster? Where's my holster? When I finally get it done, and then I send them the invoice, say, okay, this is what you owe me. And if you pay me by this date, I'll get it in the mail. Nothing.
Gone.
They just
well, you told us years ago if we just bought you a $10,000 sewing machine, you wouldn't be behind anymore.
That's also true too. But then you got to spend that $10,000 on trapdoors.
We did actually. We've spent every bit of that on trapdoors, to be perfectly honest.
But no, I'm not saying names here, but I've got 2 in this back room that one guy every 2 weeks emailing me, where's my holster? Where's my holster? Send me an email, said your holster's done. Send me the payment and I'll get it in the mail. 3 months later, he sends me an email, where's my holster? I said, I sent you the invoice. You haven't paid for it yet. And nothing. Haven't heard nothing. It's still sitting back there. And come probably 1st of March, if not sooner, I'm gonna start throwing a bunch of them online and selling them. There's another one in there, spotted holster. A guy wanted, just had to have it black with silver spots. I even ordered the leather for the lining. Wanted a white lining in it. Made it up. It's one of the most beautiful holsters I've ever made. Still,
What's
sitting
it for?
For a Remington.
Well, there you go, guys. Any of you guys need a Remington holster? He's got one sitting back there.
150 with
In stock.
In stock. Yep. And I showed that one off before. It's that one black one with the fancy silver spots on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had another guy that said, well, I'd be interested in that. And for the last month and a half, well, I'm going to buy it off you. Well, I'm going to buy it off you. Well, I'm going to buy it off you. I finally told him, I said, crap or get off the pot, because until I see money in my hand, I ain't going to believe you're buying it off me.
So whoever sends money first, guys.
Yeah. So one of these days we'll have a little live here that we will show all those holsters that are sitting back there that people haven't paid for, and I've emailed them about, and they're going to go for sale. But that's kind of part of the reason why I haven't been doing them here lately.
Yeah. Tim O'Neill said, hi, Florida, here late as usual. Travis Lynn has a good question here. I have a Colt single action army that's a safe queen. How often should it be re-oiled?
Well, as long as you can see a light coat of oil on the outside. Now, in like the actual museum world, they'll put a light coat of wax on it as a protective. Now, don't do like the guy that came in before Caroline.
Here it comes.
And just take it and do the Russian Cosmoline routine and just dump it down and
Don't get in there.
pull it out. If you're going to go that route, go a very, very light coat of wax. But no, as long as you can see oil on it, every so often you might want to wipe the old oil off and put new oil on, just so it doesn't turn into grit and what's the word I'm looking for? Gunk.
Yep.
Reminds
It
me
also
of
depends on where you live. If you live in Florida, you might want to check that dude 2 times a day. If you live in Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, you might not have to check it but once every 6 months.
Yeah.
I
And
was,
the other key to that is if you've got a safe like mine, put either goldenrod or desiccant packs in there to keep the moisture out.
All right. I think we answered that. Do you have something to say, Ethan?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, he's talking about that Russian Cosmoline reminded me of, I heard listening to a lecture by Dave Pearson the other day on the brown bass, and somebody had told him and made him kind of mad. Somebody asked him what kind of finish they used on the original land pattern muskets, and before he could answer, somebody piped off with, "Well, they just dumped them in a barrel of linseed oil." He was like, "No, they did not."
Well, that's interesting because Springfield did just dump them in linseed oil with turpentine.
Huh.
So that might be
Well,
what
I don't think they did that in Britain.
That was a thing after the Civil War.
Yep.
Oh,
Maybe.
this is Revolutionary War era, Revolutionary War era and before.
Now, if you ask
Yeah.
what the Nepalese and the Indians dumped their muskets in, they dumped it in yak grease, and they didn't bother dehairing
Yep.
the yak before they made the grease.
Nope.
Yep. They dumped them in woodworms.
Yeah, they did.
That's what they did. The Nepalese did.
What was it? I was watching some video of a guy cleaning up one of those Martini Henrys that came from Nepal, and he pulls out this big gob. It's nothing but yak hair and grease.
Yep.
I
know
was
that feeling.
Cleaning up that Brunswick that Ethan bought with the original. We didn't wind up using the original stock, but I was like, there's wormwood holes in this thing everywhere.
You could hear them.
Caleb goes, well, I'm glad they died years ago. And then I said, put your ear up to that thing, Caleb. You could hear them chewing away in there. He said, get that away from my gun collection.
And I can
He
just see
grabbed that
Caleb
dude
saying
and
that too.
he threw it in the freezer. That's where it stayed.
Well, I said, Kelvin, you do realize it does get cold up in Nepal, and they've evidently survived that.
They won't survive 2 weeks in a deep freeze. That's how you kill them if you want to
Yeah.
get wood.
We
2 weeks
do
in a deep freeze.
for any bugs with museum stuff. It was 6 weeks at 0 or below.
Yep.
Hmm.
Okay, so Snapper.
Because I'll tell you, the wood bugs that we've got up there in Wyoming, because my friend, when he's splitting firewood, he uses ash, and you find all kinds of ash borer beetles in there. The larvae in that, I have seen larvae crawling out of his firewood after it's been sitting outside below zero for weeks on end.
Yeah.
So, doesn't always get them.
Louisiana Gray said, I found that ultrasonic cleaners leave a residue. Just use Dawn dish soap in that ultrasonic cleaner. That's what I do. Or you can use Simple Green. Let's see. Maybe you got something else going on.
Depends on your detergent.
Okay. Yeah. Jeremy P. said, what is your favorite point or type of historical firearms?
Depends on which day of the week.
That conversion era is kind of the high point for me.
From about 68 to 72.
Yeah, that time frame. And in the French and Indian War, that time frame too, because that's when rifles are really starting to come about. Starting to really gain in popularity. So it's that transitional periods from one technology into the other. The transition into the semi-auto area, some of those are pretty interesting to look at.
Innovation periods is what you're thinking.
Yeah, innovation periods. Because you look at some of those Colt early 1911 models the models that lead up to the 1911.
1905.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a 45 CP one of them, but I mean, they're long, skinny. What is that one? It's looking like an 8-inch barrel, 6-inch barrel.
Yep.
The Colt 1903 hammerless, that's kind of that transition period. That's one of the most beautiful semi-autos ever made.
I gotta agree with you. I would say the transition period too in both rifles and handguns. Obviously, I love the 72 open top. I like the conversions. Colts are beautiful. Even Remington's doing conversions there that are pretty cool looking. That's when you start seeing the sharps really take off. The rolling block really takes off. The trapdoor really takes off. And it's like all these guys that have just been all through the Civil War, and patents have held them back, but all through the Civil War, they've just been in their mind innovating. How can we make this better? After about 1868, when Roland White and Smith & Wesson finally get out of the way, just like, whoosh, away we go.
And it's kind of like right now, we're in kind of one of them lulls.
Stagnant.
Yeah, where, firearms technology is not advancing. And it is in its own way, but it's not like it was back then. Those transitions back then were pretty quick. But we're kind of in that transition period in modern days, kind of like when the flintlock came about. Because the flintlock stays around for 200 years?
Yep.
So until they design laser rifles, which that's coming, or bullets that are caseless, essentially, the rocket ball technology they tried to come up with in the 1800s, where the whole works goes out. You don't have to worry about casings and everything. Unless that comes about soon, or the laser transition, we're kind of in that lull. We're in that flintlock equivalent where it's going to stick around for a long time.
It also takes to drive a lot of innovation in firearms technology, takes a great deal of interest in the civilian manufacture of firearms. The flintlock rifle itself, that's kind of a civilian thing.
Yep.
That would drive that. And then the revolver, that's a civilian thing that was driven. The lever action rifle, that was a civilian thing. Not necessarily bolt action rifles to an extent. There were German people making them, obviously, before everybody else. The Needham and all that. I mean, there was that's kind of its own thing. And then you look at even like the AR-15, that was developed on the civilian market, honestly.
Yep.
Was it not?
Yeah.
Yep.
They started out. Stoner.
And we're in a time period right now where that civilian manufacturing of firearms is not smiled on.
Yeah. If you look at it, Stoner was doing basically the same thing as Colt. The idea is get a big government contract, but until you get that big government contract, because you're not guaranteed it, you have to make something for the civilian market.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're not going to survive. And Colt didn't survive because Colt recently got to where they was just doing government contracts, and now guess what? CZ took them over.
Yep. Think about shotguns, pump action shotguns. That's designed. That's a Winchester civilian production. Semi-automatic shotguns. That's a Remington, Browning, or FN, and then later Winchester deal.
Yep.
And that shotgun, the Remington model or the Browning or FN model, actually drove the long recoil system that was used in so much World War I automatic weaponry. So,
Still used today.
Really take a look at too is that times of war advanced firearms technology more rapidly.
Yep.
The revolver,
They do.
the only reason we got revolvers, Mexican-American War.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, the revolver probably would have never come about for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The cartridge, the Civil War.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Center fire cartridge, the Indian Wars.
Yeah. And center fire, they were heading to that anyway because they realized it was better.
Safer.
Safer. But no, in 18, because when did Smith & Wesson invent the first metallic cartridge, Ethan?
56.
56? Okay.
Mm-hmm. That was
what
a
about the
22.
Flaubert?
Yeah, you have the Flaubert, but I like people are like, that was the first true self-contained cartridge. I'm like, it was a percussion cap with a BB in it.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it was, but there was no propellant other than the mercury fulminate.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you look at it, they start that and, in the 50s, later 50s, but you get into the Civil War and suddenly they start, they're not widespread use, but they start to see considerable more use. And then after the Civil War, they realize, hey, this is the way to go, and cartridges take over. Then during the Spanish-American War, it's going to change, what bolt actions we use. It's going to change what machine guns we wind up using. And then World War I really makes a big change in arms, but not so much in small arms as much as in tanks and airplanes and such like that.
Yep.
And machine guns, yeah, to an extent.
Yeah, machine guns.
Yeah. Let's see. Serpent Hanzo, number one Big Bears. Oh, he's talking. Okay, he's talking to another guy there. Let's see. I'm skipping through a few of these guys just to. Kerry Sotomayor said I use a hot plate to keep his mold warm.
Yep.
They're talking about molds there. Gunslinger asked, favorite gun? All time.
51 Navy.
It's kind of a hard question. It changes every year or so for me.
Right now it's GP 100 or 400 or whatever it is.
Oh no, that's not my favorite. That's my favorite using gun.
Oh, okay.
But that's not my favorite gun. Like, it's really hard for me because I like trapdoors. I haven't had a lot of experiences with sharps, but the history of the sharps guns really always makes them one of the guns that I'm always going to go to. Preferably, I would have to say at the moment, the gun I have the most interest in, even though I don't personally own one, is a 1868 Sharps conversion in 5070 carbine.
But Garrett, I thought the GP 100 was your dream gun.
This is a different dream.
I was going to see if you were going to get that.
I've had several GP 100s. Yeah, obviously, but that's my favorite. Like if I got to carry one every day, yeah, I like that. But it's like this is about history. So I don't. That'd be like saying that a Glock's your favorite in a weird way. It's kind of a strange thing.
Glock's my favorite for usage.
Oh yeah.
Besides 1911, but Glocks, they run.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, come down to if I'm in a fight and I got a 1911 or a Glock to grab, I'll probably grab the Glock because it's got more bullets. But I'm not gonna lightly grab it over the 1911.
I also feel like this question has to always be divided between handguns and rifles because they're two different things. Or long guns. Ethan, do you got one?
Yep. 66 Charleville.
How'd I guess you were going to say that?
Yep.
Okay. Kodak Tackman said, I see an Ethan in our midst.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, he hasn't been on for a while, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Which country do you think has the most underrated antique military surplus rifle? Now, we're going to better stick to that last word there, rifle.
I'd have to say that Egyptian, the one that gives, the one that gives you the grand thumb,
but takes your finger off.
that puts your thumb into the chamber.
That's no joke. You think
They're
that's
kind of cool.
underrated?
I had a chance to have one of those, and when I about got my thumb pulled, I decided against it.
What do you think, Ethan? Military surplus rifle.
Ooh, I don't know. I'd say the trapdoor is probably one of the most underrated military surplus trapdoor rifles, just because everybody loves to hate on them because all the big gun tubers have got on there and said, well, it didn't serve long.
For 30 plus years.
It didn't serve real long. I mean,
it served a really long time, Duke.
Compared to the AR platform,
that is the only one I think that served longer.
No, you do have a point. That is
longer. Honestly,
longer than 1903. Because 1903 was 03 to what? Well, maybe the 1903 might have been longer because I think it was 60 years. Because they were still being fielded in Vietnam.
Because they used it as a sniper role.
Still in Vietnam.
So say 60 years there.
Yep.
When you say the AR-15, that means you're still including the M4 and the modern
I'm
variations.
saying the AR platform.
Okay, so then we say the trapdoor platform, right?
Trapdoor platform.
Yep. 60,
so that's not the 73 trapdoor, but that's all the trapdoor. Yeah.
66 to 1916.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they were still being used. Yeah, I'm thinking 1892 or 4 when they go over to the bolt.
50 years.
So they kept them. They were definitely still in 1899 in the Philippines. Definitely still in the records being used. Still in the arsenals and being used up to 1916. And 1917, they put them in the civilian marksmanship program and get rid of them. So maybe it is the third, but I got to say, 50 years is a long run.
Yeah, so it is a fairly long serve, yeah. But the one downside to that trapdoor is the fact that door system is relatively weak. Granted, they weren't shooting anything that's going to pop it, but, you put a modern 45-70 in there and it's going to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like arguing against it's kind of like the same thing as arguing against open top Colts since the Civil War, saying that they're a weak design. It's like there's nothing there that's going to break it at the time.
Yeah,
but with that thought process though, then all of the single action rifles are going, except for maybe the rolling block, are going to be pretty weak. Like the Chassepoe, the Martini Henry, because you put any modern round in any of those, they're going to pop open too.
Yeah, the Martini Henry though, the way that block system works. Your pressure is pushing back into it. Whereas that trapdoor, it's pushing. You see what I mean? The trapdoor on that hinge, the hinge point is right above. So that's why I'm saying the door system is weak.
And what a lot of people don't realize is that door system changed a lot, even in the life of the 73 alone.
Yeah.
In 77, they beefed that dude up, took out that arch, made huge gas ports in the side. And so by the time you get to the 84, they can load the 84 trapdoor is what they're loading the 4580 cartridge in, which is really hot for what they're doing for long range shooting. But, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I would say it is overrated or underrated. I would have to say if I had to pick an underrated military rifle, it would have to either be the Hall or the 1803 Harper's Ferry.
The Hall kind of
nobody talks about.
The Hall had issues, especially
had issues.
Were not.
However, it was used for a long time.
The innovation of it is what gets me.
The Hall cap lock system was all the soldiers loved it. One of the problems with it, though, is soldiers found out, hey, we could turn this into a pocket gun, just pull that block out of there.
Soldiers would never do that.
Shot
No.
themselves in an area I'm not going to describe because your mom's on here. But let's just say that there's a lot of blood vessels in that area that cause them to bleed to death in a very rapid time frame. And
That's why you don't carry a flintlock or a cap lock appendix.
Yeah. So there's a saying: don't point your Glock at your. Don't point your percussion cap at your.
Space Art.
You want to talk about? But you want to talk about underrated firearms in general, not just rifles? I would have to say that the most underrated firearm in history that everybody loves to hate nowadays is a matchlock. Because that thing was used forever, and when used correctly, it was pretty effective.
Yeah, it was used as long as the flintlock was.
Yeah.
Even longer. What was it? Doc was telling me the other day from Land and Sea had that story of the United States Marines after the Civil War going to Korea, or was it
Going against matchlocks?
There was sports with matchlocks, and they were like, "Huh."
Well, that's cute. Behold, my trapdoor.
They didn't have trapdoors.
Well, they didn't have trapdoors. That's right.
The Marines get updated last.
They're like, hey, we still have the upper hand, though.
One thing about a matchlock, though, is if your match gets wet, just take an ember out of the fire and put in that thing. And if it's not a spring-loaded one, if it's just one, it'll work.
Well, that book that
unreleased, it's in our unreleased wheel.
Yeah, don't get me started.
Already made, except for the shooting. There's a very interesting story in there that takes place in Maine. I want to say it's pre-Pilgrim, so it's like 1680, 1690, not pre-Pilgrim. It's like right around 1600, I should say. And anyway, the story is the captain is on the boat on the river up there toward Maine, and he gets all his guys together. Well, the Indians have already learned at that point up there that they're trading with that if you take away the fire, these guys can't shoot. So what they're doing is when they're on the boat, they have a man standing with a torch at all times. So these Indians are trading with, kind of friendly with him. One of them goes up there and asks if he can light his pipe with a torch. Well, the guy gives him the torch and he throws it in the water and then jumps off onto the shore. And they're all sitting there. And the Indians start grabbing the ropes and pulling the boat in. What are you going to do? He said, I commanded them to stand back so I could go on shore and get fire. And he said they wouldn't stand back.
So I like
they hacked the ropes and sailed away. Is what they did.
No, they I like the end of that story because they ended up he got them all in line. No matches in the guns. Guns are unloaded. Gets them on line and gets them ready to fire a volley, and that was enough to scare away the Indians.
They got the ropes cut and got back out in the river. That was the long story of it.
I don't think those guns are going to go off, but I would really be disappointed if they did. My phone is just about to die, Garrett, so I might have to get off here.
Okay.
But
see you later.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah, catch you later, Ethan.
See you, bye. Gina Wood said, good evening, guys. Hello, Duke. Space Art asks, cleaning a black powder gun out in the field back in the day, what difficulties would there have been?
Losing parts.
That's
the one thing I will give a Remington.
Yeah.
Is that you can clean it in the field and you only got one part that's going to come out of there and possibly get lost, and that's the cylinder. Whereas a Colt, you've got three separate parts.
Yep. I don't think they cleaned as much as we think they did either, do you?
They ain't going to strip them down and clean the internals out of them. No, that was something that if that had to be done, it's going to be done somewhere where you're out in a nice, quiet spot and don't have to worry about losing parts. But And everybody says, yeah, they cleaned their guns. They took care of their guns. You look at some of the guns that have survived, that are Pioneer guns. No, there was guys just like today that were lazy and slovenly in the care of their firearms. And there are a lot of native guns that I don't think they understood the importance of cleaning.
It's been stated that a good armory-kept U.S. military weapon is expected to last 100 years.
Yeah.
A native weapon is expected to last 5.
And if you look in, I forgot what book that was, but I think it was January Moon, the guns that was turned in after the Dull Knife fight and all them, and most of them were unoperable.
Yep.
They were just so
Broken.
wore out. Broken stocks, broken barrels, burst barrels, parts missing, parts broken. But
mostly lock hammers. Lock hammers are bad.
Like I said, there's a lot of Pioneers and early ones that they didn't take care of their guns either.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me of a question Josh from Wild West Extravaganza asked me one time. He said, most of the people today have their grandpa shotgun that was around 100 years ago. Where are the muzzle loaders in the 1890s that were in existence in the 1830s? I said, used up, gone, broken, trashed, most of them.
Yep.
There's a tool. It wasn't a collector's item.
And then there were some people that, they were really good about cleaning it. Like, when I was up on the ranch in South Dakota, guy that I worked there for, he had a couple shotguns that you didn't want to fire them. There were a couple single shots. One was a 12 gauge, one was a 20 gauge. And the 12 gauge was held together by electrical tape. And when you closed it, it was so loose that we weren't ever going to fire that thing. But you look at my grandpa's 16 gauge that he probably bought about the same time. It looks just as good as the day that Grandpa bought it.
Yep.
The only thing that's different on it is Grandpa took that beaded front sight and he sat there with a file watching TV one night and he filed that thing down to where it was barely a nub left. In my eyes at this point, I can barely see it. But I tell you what, Grandpa didn't miss.
He's fine-sighted.
Grandpa did not rarely missed with that shotgun.
Yeah. Stephen M. Mann asks, have you boys seen my new rifle?
No, I haven't. I've gotten to where the only thing I really watch on YouTube, well, for one, people I'm subscribed to don't show up. It's very rare. I have to go looking for Garrett's videos to see them when they upload new stuff. So most of the stuff I watch lately is just kind of, I've been watching a lot of crime documentary things here lately. That's been what they've been popping up on mine, but I don't watch much gun stuff on there anymore. And to be honest, it's getting to the point where it's all the same thing. The good channels that used to be really good when I'm done there, all advertisements and fear mongering.
Mm-hmm.
And I still watch Mike Bellevue every so often. But Dustin Weiniger, I still watch him. Arizona Ghost Riders, I still watch. But otherwise, a lot of them just don't even know they've been uploaded.
Yep. Gina Wood said, I'm drinking Coke in your honor, Duke.
Cheers, except this one's empty.
One guy said, good evening, guys.
All right.
Here's a good question for you, Duke. IWS Bull 1 says, which addiction is more expensive, the Jeep or black powder guns?
Well, I use the Jeep more lately. Now the Jeep is it's at that point. It's 15 years old, and it's starting to have a lot of things replaced on it because they weren't replaced beforehand, like spark plugs. I replaced them this past October because they've been in there for 15 years. And then I had to get new shocks, all kinds of new stuff. Yeah.
Very interesting question here. Just Having Fun says, what would a holster look like for an 1871 rolling block pistol?
I don't know.
I think I have the answer.
I probably have the answer too if I went and found the book.
I got this. Duke, you need this book if you have any others.
Let me go grab the one that I need.
Indian Wars cartridge pouches, boxes, and carbine boots.
I do need that one.
By
Be right back.
I don't know if that's in here because it's the carbine boot. But you're talking like a pistol. I don't know what that would look like. I would think that I don't know a whole lot on that pistol. There was actually a trapdoor pistol too in '69, but
So that pistol was used by the Navy.
And the Russians used them, but
The Russians used them, but mostly in the U.S. it's used by the Navy.
I was wondering if it was more of a horse pistol type thing.
So
Because I know that when they tried to design the trapdoor pistol in '69, that was thought it was going to be a horse pistol.
So I'm going to guess it's going to wind up looking like one of those horse pistol or a horse pistol. One of those. It's probably a bucket holster, but I don't remember if they have one in this book. Got one for a Savage. Got one for Allen and Wheelock side hammer. And then we've jumped to the 73 single action. All right, and there's carbine stuff. There's more carbine stuff. More carbine stuff. And there wasn't a lot of them that were actually put into use. They may have never developed a holster for them.
Yeah. I think in the Russians anyway, it's a horse pistol type thing. Maybe not, but
Yeah, where it's kind of a bucket with a flap.
yeah, be my
Yeah,
guess.
they did not have one there in the civilian section. So let's go.
Since they're not Indian Wars type things, I haven't seen a whole lot on it.
But the bucket holsters were still in use up through the Civil War.
Yeah.
And so if anybody's not familiar with what I mean by a bucket holster, yeah, they don't have one in here.
I'm sure if you looked online, you could find one.
That right there is a bucket holster.
Yeah. You still there, Duke?
Yeah.
I'm doing an online search right quick, so I didn't want to lose it.
Because, yeah, what was the number of rolling block pistols? It wasn't that many.
Well, it depends on it. Foreign, it was a bunch.
Right, but I mean, the U.S. Navy adopted it. Was it even 1,000?
I don't honestly know. I'd have to ask Doc on that one.
Because I know they used them for signal guns.
That was interesting. Oops, Navy holsters. There it was. There's an Indian made one too. Rare Navy holster. I don't know how well I can do this. Let me save it and we'll bring it over here and look at
I
it.
think if you go to that present, you can do a split screen.
I can, but I don't want to throw all this up over there. So I'm just going to save the image right quick. Save and not kill the stream. I always accidentally do that. All right. Brand. Add an overlay. From desktop. Okay. And boom.
Yep, so that's basically a bucket style that's been modified for it.
That is a U.S. Navy holster.
And that's the belt loop on the back.
Look at the cant on that thing.
It has that modern day cant to it.
It's got a forward cant.
But
that's crazy.
That is a modified holster.
Oh, has it? It looks like top's been cut off.
No, it's either modified or the strap. I bet the strap come off of it.
Oh, yeah, I see where it was wore right there.
Yeah, so there's something was sewn to it there, and it has since detached. Is that the only picture they have of it?
Well, let me go look again.
Was that at an auction house?
Yeah, I didn't look real close. Let me see here. Ancestry Guns. Yeah, they got a front picture of it too. Hang on. Yeah, it has a finial on it.
Okay, so the flap.
Hang on. Yeah, I'll get it just a second.
Yeah, I just found it too.
Let's see. Add overlay. We can look at it here.
Oh, there's a model 1901 rolling block pistol with a holster, and it's just a Mexican double loop.
There you go.
But yeah,
Yep.
there's the yeah, it had a finial.
You think it was an open? What would the Navy have used open top holsters like that? You'd think it doesn't protect.
Yeah,
the gun
and
well.
it would have had a half flap strap across top.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah. So,
Oh, hey, there's a book called U.S. Single Action Cartridge Handgun Holsters, 1870 to 1910. And the picture that they have with that rolling block pistol in it is a looks like a regular 1860 full flap.
okay, what was that called again? I'll find it.
The book is called U.S. Single Action Cartridge Handgun Holsters.
Well, I probably could get it just by that. Did you type in 1871 holster?
Yeah, and it popped up several pictures down. There's a Native American holster for one.
I saw that one with the red beadwork.
Yeah, that's kind of pretty.
Let's see.
But it's a full flap.
Yeah. I'm not seeing the one for the. I see that one again. Let's see. Where you at? There's that one. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. Rare Remington rolling block, full flap holster. All right, let's grab that without killing the stream. Brand, overlays. Is this one you're looking at right here?
Yep, very similar to that. So yeah, it's a full flap.
That looks like something more the Navy would use because they're all about protecting the gun from saltwater.
Yep. Well, in the military, they at that time period, every branch used a full flap. They didn't go to half flap until 1874.
Yep. Trying to figure out where I left off on comments. Oh, okay, there we are. Sorry.
And I think that was due to, if I remember reading that, one of the reasons for the change was due to soldiers dropping their guns and shooting themselves because trying to grab the gun with that full flap. And I've done that. It's not easy to do. When you've got a half flap and you pop it out of the way, you can get your hand all the way around the grip.
Okay. Classy has a question. Any of you ever opened up a bullet resizing die to a couple thousandths of an inch? I have a Lee 376. I need to open up to 377 or 378. I'm thinking emery cloth and a drill. They don't make a 378. Somebody does.
I'd start looking around because I've found them. They usually go up in increments of what is that, thousandth?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean,
what
the thing of it is that your emery cloth, you're not going to get the precision that you'd get with a CNC machine.
It's been so long since I cast for 51 Navies. What's the bore size of the Uberti? Is it not a 3.7? I've cast 3.80s. I know I have.
Right. Yeah. The bore size on that, I don't remember what it is, but I know a 3.75 falls out of the chamber.
Yeah. And I don't know if he's right here talking about, I don't know what round he's talking about either, but if you really need that big bullet and size it down, if it is for a 51 Navy or something, obviously it looks like that's what you're going for there, unless it's some kind of rifle round. Think about if you need a really big bullet for like an original, go for the Air is Gone Richmond Lab Bull mold. That thing casts a 390. You can size her down to whatever you want. CN Arsenal has a whole series on the Colt semi-auto pistols.
Yeah.
Yep. Question for Ethan. Sorry, he left already. Size of flint are you using for the India muskets? I ordered 2 pounds of the original British and French flints from IMA, hoping they're serviceable in the MH 1816. You gonna answer this, Duke? You want me to?
The only flints I bought were for the first flintlock I had. I don't remember what size they were, but when I got up to the Brown Bess, I was buying 7/8 inch flints.
Mm-hmm. If you
Yeah.
want to make it easy, go to Track of the Wolf.
Yeah.
Look up Tom Fuller Nat Flints, and they will have, if you scroll down, they will tell you exactly what each flint size is for. And a Charlottesville flint is different than a Brown Bess flint, which is different than a Fusey flint, which is different than an 1816 flint.
I think, yeah, Brown Bess is one of the bigger ones. The only thing I've
One
seen
of the
bigger
biggest
than
ones.
that is your guys' camel gun.
Yeah. And so they have all that in Track of the Wolf if you need it. Hey, Mill Creek Range says, I'm here. Yes, I know I'm late. Czars Taylor. Hey, he was on Gray Pilgrim the other day. He says, what is your opinion on the Adams revolvers, Adams Beaumont or Dean Adams compared to the Occult revolver? Well, it's no fair because Pilgrim had a guy on his show not too long ago that had one.
Yeah, and I've never handled one. The reproductions are supposed to be hitting the U.S. market, I think, sometime this year. I'm waiting for the 50 cal, but from what I understand, they're going to go from anywhere from 12 to 1400.
More powerful than the Walker.
We'll see if I get one. Well, we might all have to chip in on one.
We might have to.
But yeah, the 50 cal Beaumont Adams.
Yep.
It may or may not be more powerful than the Walker. Certainly a bigger bullet than the Walker.
Yep, you don't need near
I
as
don't
much
know what the
cylinder.
powder charge is going to be behind it.
You don't need as much cylinder length when you got a bigger round.
Yeah.
Jared says, Duke, Jared 1860, when did modern leather carving come about? As in Sheridan style or Western style? What did they use in, say, the 1860s for carving or tooling and carving? Sorry.
So you can go back and if you start looking at like things like saddles and pommel bags or other saddle bags, you can kind of watch the Sheridan carving that's done nowadays was definitely getting in late 1880s to early 1890s. You can almost track that stuff pretty close. So I got a set the saddlebags that Garrett has, the pommel bags. That style started coming in the early 1850s, and by the late 1850s, you're starting to see some carving and tooling. It's basically, there's a lot of the carving detail. There's border stamping. They have stamps for border stamps, geometric border stamps. The tooling on the flowering itself is there's some beveling and some seed work and a lot of decorative cuts. But as you start getting further in time, you get into the 1860s, the floral tooling starts to get a little more intricate through the 1870s. And by the 1880s, it's getting pretty much like you see it today. And you can track that on holsters too. On the cover of this book, which I don't have my cover. I don't know where my cover went. There's one holster in here. Okay, now I got to find it. Hang on a second here. I went too far. See if I can find it. I've made a reproduction of it. I got to do another one here too for my buddy. And it's an F.A. Minya, if I remember right. And if you don't know who that is, he was a saddle maker in Cheyenne. He made holsters, rifle scabbard saddles. Me and Garrett seen a couple of these saddles up in Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
That one right there. That's pretty detailed, pretty close to what you'd see today. Although today is getting to where you don't have as much background on it. But that one was done from 1890 to 1900. So that's kind of getting into the really modern style. Basket weave kind of gets in the late 1800s. But if you go back to the percussion age, we're going to go back here to the percussion age. As soon as I can get far enough back in here. So in the 1870s, they're really starting to do carving. There's an example of one from the 1870s.
That's pretty.
Let's see. This one was made somewhere in the 1860s, 1870s. I've actually made a copy of this, but not with the carving on it. And you can't really see the carving there because it's washing out in the light. But it's got some intricate carving. And then, there's let's see, this one was made in the 1860s. The George Washington holster. Can't see it. Okay, let me try to do this and see if we can still see anything. Still can't because my screen, but anyway,
I can see it.
Right there's got George Washington's motif carved into it.
Huh.
And so that one was made between 63 and 65 up in Denver by Gallatin. Let's see here. See if I can go back and find something even older. There's the one with the ram's head motif, and that one was made in 55 to 65. So a lot of these are showing in the 1860s, 50s to 60s, but let's see. This one's listed as 1850 to 60, and see, it's basically carved with very little tooling. You got some seed stamps. Most of that's just carving, though. And the reason why it looks really wide is as you carve it, either they cut a chunk out of it or it has drawn away with age. Yeah, here's one 1855, and it's got geometric stamping on it. So stamps could be made. And they weren't too different than leather tools today. Leather tools today haven't changed really that much in the last 100 and some odd years. Other than they're made out of cheaper material. Well, let's see if I can find that. And then here's that saddlebag. So that's the one that I've made copies of. This one is from the 1860 to 1870. And so you can see the floral carving in there. Kind of.
Yeah, it looks good. I can actually see it up close.
Yeah, so you can see the geometric stamping on there. There's a little bit of beveling. But not a lot of detailed beveling. It's mostly it's carving and a few stamps, and then the border stamp is the most stamping that's done on it. But that kind of detail that would come in. Well, here's one from 1850s and 60s.
Yeah,
you can see those, or I guess it's over here under my pinky. So it goes back quite a ways. And then there's this one fancy one on this other side. Let's see, when was that made? This one was a custom ordered, made in the late 1860s, early 1870s. That is a fancy piece of equipment.
Oh, yeah. That's nice.
And that one looks like it's designed to go over the seat of a saddle and sit behind the rider. But, you'd see all kinds of fancy stuff. And then, here's one with leopard skin. That's 1840s.
Yeah. Very nice.
Leopard Jaguar. Made in Mexico. Yeah, it says leopard skin. But what's funny is that red strap, that is a surcingle. So that is not designed for a saddle with a pommel on it. That is designed for an English style saddle.
Cool. Alpine Gulch has a question. Any history on Pine Bluffs, Wyoming? Any ties to Sand Creek Massacre revenge against the pioneers?
Well, there's the thing they call the Sand Creek Trail where they went north after Sand Creek because that's, gets started into the 1865 war. I'm trying to remember. I'm having a brain fart. I lived in Wyoming. I should know where Pine Bluffs is at, but I'm having a brain fart. Can't remember where it's at exactly on the map. So just bear with me here because if I remember right, it's right up there. Why did Pine Bluffs take me to Montana? Oh, wait. No, it didn't. It took me down there. Yeah, Pine Bluffs. Duh. It's down there. Yeah. It's down there on I-80. So there was all kinds of stuff that went on down in that area. Because right after Sand Creek, they go up to Julesburg. And they're operating The Cheyenne, some bands of Lakota and the Arapaho are kind of camped up there in that northern Colorado, Nebraska area to try to get away from the soldiers, and at the same time trying to retaliate. So yeah, there was stuff going on up there in that area. I just don't know the specifics. But I know not too far away over at Mud Springs, there was a fight. Rush Creek, there was a fight, which is only about 4 or 5 miles from Mud Springs. But then they started heading north. But there was all kinds of little squabbles that were taking place in that area. And then by summer, most of those native bands had moved up into the Powder River country. And then you have the Battle of Platte River Bridge, and then you have the Connor Expedition, which was mostly a failure. You do have the Battle of Tongue River, where they do hit and destroy a Arapaho village way up in northern Wyoming, and then they could call the campaign a success, but in reality, neither side really wins. It comes down to is the natives didn't get what they wanted, which was Shemington on the end of a rope. The Army did not bring in the so-called hostiles. And then they sent out a peace delegation in May of the following year, or May of 1866. And it was to bring about an end to the conflict, but it was also the main purpose was to negotiate the safe travel on the Bozeman Trail and establishment of military forts. And so really that 1865 war has a small lull and then it just turns into Red Cloud's War.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you think about it, the Colorado War of 1864 through 65, that's kind of what they call everything that results in the fight from Sand Creek on. That, or the Indian War of 1865, as it's also referred to as, it's basically Red Cloud's War. They're all the same one. It's just there was a little bit of a peace lull in the middle that didn't last very long.
Tim O'Neill said Serbia had a 7mm that was really nice. Space Art asks, in some videos I've seen it stated there could be some difficulties reloading 4440. Are they just talking about making sure the neck and shoulder are in spec?
Yeah, because when you're reloading a bottleneck, there is a limited case life. You have to resize it. You pretty much got to resize it every time, unless you're using it in the same gun. And the necks wear out. You have to lubricate them. Whereas if you get a straight wall, you can buy a carbide die, like 45 Colt. You can buy a carbide die, and you don't have to worry about lubricating your rounds, your cases. But for most part, I mean, it's not terribly hard. It's just that it's a little more difficult in 45 Colt, but it's not like extraneous.
Huh. Serpent Hanzo asks, John Marston or Red Harlow?
Red Harlow.
Well, we all know that Red Harlow is actually just uncle with lumbago. Okay. Arthur Morgan or Colton White?
Having a brain fart. Who's Colton White?
I have no idea either, and I've played all of them, so I don't remember that one. That's weird. Let's see. Gotsloco said, I have 3 iron barrel percussion rifles from, I suspect, the 1830s. They appear in decent shape. One has a set trigger. I recall it needs work on the lock. Earl Schreiner says it's a good idea to collect books on these. Tim O'Neill said Navy didn't have an issue holster. Well, evidently they claimed that was an issued Navy holster.
Yeah, the Navy had issued holsters. The thing was that the Navy wasn't issued guns like, say, the cavalry or the artillery or the infantry.
Yeah.
Each, they kind of played around with different items, but the 51 Navy saw some Navy issuance. The 61 Navy, some of the Navy had some of those as well. Navy had a few 60 Armies, if I remember right.
Yeah.
But yeah, you kind of have to have a holster to really carry them in to protect them from the elements. And a lot of times, too, when you see one that's called a civilian model that has an all brass frame, good chance that saw use in the Navy.
Yeah. Brandon Birch said, "Did you fellows hear that Herschel House passed away today?"
Yes, I did.
I did not. I did not hear that.
I've seen a couple posts on Facebook. That's why you got to get Facebook, Garrett, so you can stay in the loop.
Was he the gunsmith of? He was, wasn't he? That made the video in the 60s. I mean, I know who he is now.
That wasn't Herschel House. That was
no. I was just wondering if that was him.
No, because the guy from Williamsburg, if I remember right, passed away quite a few years ago.
No, Herschel House. I watched lots of stuff on Herschel House nowadays, but I didn't know if that was him.
Well, all the fancy guns in the Patriot with Mel Gibson. Those rifles that him and his boys are shooting at the Redcoats with, those are Herschel House guns.
Yeah. The Czars Taylor said that was me on his show. I thought you must have had a different channel name. I thought that was Oregon somebody or other. I have one from 1851, original and 50. So you got to answer me a question. How many grains of powder does it hold if you're using a round ball? That's all that matters. Not what the original charge was, because the original Walker charge wasn't 60 either. So I just want to know how many grains it holds. Stephen M. Mann said, I just slugged the bore on my 2 Remington 36 cals in the video. It's not what you've been told. Well, I've had 2 Remington 36 Navies that were Piettas, and they both took 375s just fine. So,
yeah, Uberti tends to always be a little bigger than Pietta.
Yeah, so I have to go watch that video, Stephen. But mine always shot 375s fine.
So with my 51 Navy, 375, these were the Hornady swaged, and I don't really trust the Hornady swaged all that much, but they would walk out of the bore or walk out of the cylinder. They would fall out. If I go to 376, I get a very faint hair of lead come off, and they'd seat fine. But those 375s, I would never get a full ring of lead.
On your Uberti?
Yep.
Yeah, Ubertis need a 380 basically.
376 will work, but the 380 round ball, it cuts a heavy chunk of lead, and I've always had good luck with them.
Yeah. Lazarus Taylor said, "Are they making reproduction atoms?"
Yes, there is a company in Spain that they're wanting to get into all kinds of different guns. Right now, they're making 44 caliber atoms, double action percussion revolvers. They're going to hit the European market first. After that, they're going to start trying to import them into the United States, but they're trying to become the same, if not better quality than, say, like Uberti and Pietta.
Well, cap and ball revolvers, it's not going to be hard to get better than Uberti nowadays.
One of the things I didn't like,
terrible nowadays.
Yeah, it's still Uberti's been Uberti for the last few years. You have your Monday and Friday guns. You don't want to get them. You want the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday guns, because that's when
I always get Monday and Friday guns.
Yeah, because on Monday they're still hung over from the weekend, and Friday all they can think about is getting hung over again.
Okay. All right, here we go. You ready to dive deep on one?
All right, let's do it.
Mill Creek Range. I'm thinking about jumping into the flintlock era, looking at a Traditions Hawken kit. Pros or cons? Is it a good starter for a beginner?
Well, the modern day Hawken ones, I'm just not a big fan of. They shoot.
They shoot good.
I'm not a fan of the Traditions guns because they are not really close to anything, and this is from a historian aspect. They're not really close to anything in particular, and you're gonna find that if you try to get into like doing living history, Mountain Man era, they won't let you have them. The only one I've seen people get away with is the Kentucky, the Traditions Kentucky guns. And if you go in there and you file off all that fancy stamp work and then throw a chunk of leather across where the two pieces of the stock come together, then yeah, people love them.
Review on our channel, by the way.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, if you're going to spend the money on a kit, if you want to spend a lot of money, get a Kibler or a Tennessee TVM.
I think. Well, he wants to know: is it a good starter or a beginning? Is it a good starter for a beginner?
For a beginner, yeah, they work, but one thing I found too is that a lot of those newer ones, they have kind of a halfway in between twist rate.
Mm-hmm.
So you want a fast twist if you're shooting conicals, you want a slow twist if you're shooting round ball. They split the difference. A lot of them are 1 to 48.
Mm-hmm.
You get reasonable accuracy.
Really reasonable if it's like with Caleb takes the CVA, which is the same gun but a cap lock. CVA tradition's the same, and I got videos where he stacks them, on top of each other. I just can't get past the brass.
A lot of brass on them. Like 54, my dad's 54. He's got a CVA 54 that he got from a cousin of mine. He'll knock shotgun shells off at 50 yards all day long. 100 yards, it's throwing a little wider group. But with my 50, for whatever reason, it strings them in a perfect line. I can aim right dead center at the dot on a target at 50 yards, and they will be in a line that goes across it.
Mm-hmm.
And it does it all day long. It will stay right there on that. They will not go up and down, but they will go side to side. I have no idea what causes that. Then my uncle's 45. Yeah, he'll stack them on top. And what was funny is he decided he wanted to try some mini balls. He found some 45 caliber mini balls. And we're sitting there shooting them one day. Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, so I started shooting at clay pigeons on the berm. And it was shooting an all of 3 feet at 50 yards, 3 feet to the left. But it was stacking them in a group like this. They were just way off. So, yeah, some of them work good. Some of them, it just depends.
I can tell you the best. So the Traditions guns are just the CVA guns. They just changed, but Traditions bought the stuff when CVA quit making them.
Yeah.
And Caleb started out on his Hawken with a CVA Hawken. Nowhere near close to an original Hawken. A lot more. If you wanted to call it a Lehman, you'd get a lot farther down the road with that, in my opinion. But he took that thing with the PA conical, the short conicals, with that 148 twist, and he could just shoot the living daylights out of anything. One day, we were 100 yards away from a squirrel across a clearing in the top of a tree, and he said, "I bet I can't shoot that squirrel." And I said, "I bet you can't either." And at 100 yards, he shot the head off that squirrel. And I think he was just as surprised as I was.
We did that with a 30-06 one time, too.
Yeah, see, Caleb's a good shot, don't get me wrong, but I think that the guns are excellent as far as accuracy. They really fall apart if you want a historically accurate one. I would say if you want a little historically accurate one, it costs a little more money. Get an InvestArms Gimmer kit. And then if you really want to make it historically accurate, upgrade that lock to an L&R. So you have a flat spring lock.
But by the time you pay the money into that, you might as well buy a Kibler.
But Kibler doesn't make a Hawken necessarily.
That's true. The other thing you can do, and it's going to take more money and require more work, Track of the Wolf has some excellent kits.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful. Do your research before you buy that kit, because they have kits that are different levels. Yeah. They have kits that it takes you 5-6 hours. They're almost as good as a Kibler to put together. They have kits where they send you castings, raw castings of lock pieces, and you have to sit there and file, like what Ethan's been doing with a wheel lock for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
They send you raw castings and you put it together. But the more difficult the kit is, usually the cheaper it is. But you're looking at, what was it? I was looking at a Dickert, and they'll
about 1,100 plus.
Yeah, about 1,100, and you've got to do quite a bit of work. You got to inlet the lock. They've got a pre-inlet, but you just have to do a lot of work with some fine tools. The biggest challenge with them is you have to seat the barrel lugs. You can pay to have the barrel lugs seated, but the problem is if you don't seat them yourself, they're in that gun before that barrel's been inletted into the stock. And so if you have them do all that for you, it starts to get more expensive. At that point, buy a Kibler.
Kiblers are so finely made that they call it a kit, but at this point in the way they're making them, because we've made a couple of them now, at this point you don't even hardly have to touch a chisel. Like
They're
everything
almost as easy to put together as a CVA kit.
yeah. But the question and the way he worded it here, he's wanting to get into flintlocks. I think the
Right.
CVA, in my opinion, or traditions is a good thing. It's a couple $100 if you decide you don't like this way of doing it, because it is a whole different beast. If it just doesn't work for you, you're only out a couple $100, and you always have your starter gun. You can always sell it, and move
Right.
up.
But there's also the buy once, cry once mentality too. So
That is true. But you got to start somewhere.
yeah.
Okay. Let's move down through. They got a lot of good questions.
And
here.
it all depends on what caliber you want to get, because with CVA, I think you got 3 options: 45, 50, and 54. With Kibler, depending on what model you go with, you can go anywhere from 36 up to, I think, don't they have a 62?
For Kibler? No,
Yeah.
58. The thing with Kibler is at the moment you only have 3 options. You have the Woods Runner, which is a short gun that's anywhere from 45 to 50. I want to say it's 45 to 50. Yeah, it's those two, I think. And then you have the Colonial rifle, which is just 50 to 58. And then you have the Southern Mountain rifle that is 32 to 45.
Oh, I thought the Southern Mountain one a little bit bigger.
Nope, 45 is the biggest you can get on the Southern Mountain. Now, the Woods Runner goes up to 50. See, what they did was the Woods Runner is a shorter gun, but it's in the middle, like their caliber-wise. The Southern Mountain rifle is the longest gun they have, and it's the small calibers for squirrel hunting. And the original Colonial is the big boy.
See, I'd love to have one in 58 or 62. Because out here on the plains in the early days, a lot of those mountain men were carrying, the 50 was like the lightest you see. Once in a while, you see a 45 pop up. But for the most part, most of those guys are shooting them bigger bullets because you have these things out here called grizzly bears.
Yeah.
And as Lewis and Clark said, they'll take 10, 15 balls to the head and still bite you.
Yep. And that's why you need that CVA, or not CVA, that Kibler Colonial rifle. 58. And here's the thing. I guess if you're spending that much, you can always have that barrel bored up. I bet you if you asked Jim Kibler, he could tell you somebody who would bore it up to 62.
Right.
Then you get that big with a rifle, though, I start getting flinchy. Tim O'Neill said Navy officers bought their own pistols and holsters.
Oh,
But the Navy absolutely purchased handguns for the Navy.
yeah.
I know they purchased handguns for the Navy. So,
And that was true throughout the entire military. Officers bought their own things. If you were an enlisted man, you had your uniform provided, you had your weapon provided, you had your equipment provided. If you were an officer, you went to a tailor and they made you your uniform. You custom ordered it, come out of your paycheck. Your weapons come out of your paycheck. And that's not to say some of them could go down to the quartermaster and get one, but still going to come out of their paycheck.
Yep. Stephen M. Mann said the bore on his Pieta is 3665. That is tight. The bore on Uberti is 3710. Must have changed some since then a little bit. Because my Uberti 375 would just basically fall out. Wouldn't even cut a ring.
We'll see.
I've taken and hammered them on the table to make them oval so they would cut a ring.
That Remington I sold y'all.
Mm-hmm.
That was one problem I had is with the 4.54. I could seat it into the chamber and it would seat all right, and then drop it in the barrel and it would roll out the bore.
Yep.
Cowboys
in. Oh, sorry. I interrupted you.
No, you're fine.
I said I'm thinking on another flintlock myself. Well, good old Southern boy like you back over there, Plowboy, you ought to get you one of them Southern Mountain rifles.
Yeah, go after one of them. What'd you call them? Them Georgia tree or Georgia beef elks or whatever you call them.
I've shot a lot of flintlocks, and it's really hard to beat that Southern Mountain rifle. The only problem I have with it is it's so long, just under 6 foot, that it's hard to maneuver it in pickups and stuff. So it's like.
So I handled their Southern Mountain rifle. I can't see the front sight.
Why can't you see the front sight?
It's so fine. I can't see it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can change that. You can get
Yeah.
a different. They sell different front sights.
But no, when you handed me that gun, I was sitting there looking. I'm like, I can't even get the sight in the notch because I can't see it.
Well, it is a long way out there.
That's one problem I've had for years with iron sights. I was like, when I was a kid, when I was younger, iron sights didn't bother me. But as I get older, the older I get, the more and more trouble I have with iron sights.
Yep.
And which is funny because I use a 1911 with GI sights, and everybody says I can't see them. That's the only iron sights I can see real well.
Well,
But
I see that pretty good, but a lot of people do buy the German silver wide front sight for that.
yeah,
And then they'll even take and maybe even paint it a little bit. And I've seen Bob McBride used to take pieces of PVC pipe that were fit to the barrel of the gun, clamp them on there so that he could line up down them and see that sight at long range.
and then on my 49 pocket model, I can't see the front sight on that 49 pocket model when I'm all the way out, unless it's a really sunny day and I got the sun at my back. Can't see it.
One of these days, Plowboy, we'll head down to Alabama and see you, and we'll bring a couple flintlocks and you can see what you think.
Or maybe you can come up Kansas way.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, Colton White is the main character in Gun. That's why I didn't.
Oh
remember.
yeah.
different series.
Yeah, that's been a long time. Yeah, that would be a hard one. I think I'd still take Arthur.
Okay. Tim O'Neill said my Invest Arms left-handed flintlock shoots fine 50, not historical gun.
Yeah. Now
Cool
the
Hand
Lyman, I was
Go
going
ahead,
to say
sorry.
the Lyman Great Plains rifles, they were made by Invest Arms for a long time.
Yep. Okay, Cool Hand said I have a CVA Hawken. It is an accurate gun. It took a lot of wood off of that thing. I even changed out the sights to a more traditional sights. Kathy Welch said, good evening, guys. Tim O'Neill said I'm having iron sight problem seeing it. And Stephen M. Mann said I'm talking about bore diameter, not cylinder chamber diameter.
Right. Well, the point I was making, Steve, is that on that Remington, the bore, that tool, whenever they lapped, that was so wore out that, yeah, it wouldn't fit in the bore. So that's something to think about on the Ubertis too, is that sometimes when they don't fit in the bore, that cylinder is not bored out right.
Yeah. I didn't have any problem shooting that one, though. I mean, it actually shot better than some of the others I've had in over past years.
I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with anything I put through it.
Huh.
That was why I was going to convert it to 45 Colt, but then the Curse converters that I wanted, they quit making them, and then they went back to just a 5-shot evenly spaced, because it used to be the Curse for that Remington that I wanted. It had 5, but then it had a dead spot in the center, so that you could load 5 and then you could stick the safety in that dead spot. Well, then they changed it and they went to 5 all evenly spaced, and it doesn't look right. It looked more traditional before they changed it.
Yeah. Just going back to what Mill Creek Range, he said, I wanted to work up to a Kibler and start with a starter kit first. Thanks for the feedback, Duke.
Yep.
I agree. The only thing is with a flintlock, prepare for some clutches with that CVA lock. It's not the best. You can upgrade it, but that costs $300-400 now. I would say if it's financially feasible to start with the Kibler myself. If it's not something that's going to just break you, if it's some, it's like, yeah, it's probably $500 more than that kit, but it's so easy to put together. It shoots so good. Just go look at Jake from Everything Black Powder. You know, they're both great guns. Don't get me wrong. CVA is a great gun. And I like that Kibler, though. You don't go back once you get to something like that, really.
Buy once, cry once, and steer clear of Pedersoli flintlocks.
You just don't like to snap all your flints into.
There's one Pedersoli flintlock I had that was a good gun, and I sold it. I
You're
regret
gonna get
selling
some.
but
You're
I
gonna
need
get
it.
some flack. There's a lot of people in this comment section that love Pedersoli flintlocks.
That. And your brother has that Pedersoli flintlock that I had that was good. That Brown Bess was probably the best flintlock I'd ever had. Never had an issue with it sparking, but I had it was the Cabela's Blue Ridge rifle. It was made by Pedersoli. That thing was, it was all right, but it was a pain. Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with it. And then I got a Pedersoli flintlock Kentucky. And that thing was an absolute nightmare. I shot 3 shots through it. All 3 shots stacked on top of each other, but all 3 shots required their own flint. And I decided if I'm going to buy a flint every time I fire the thing, I might as well get a percussion gun. So I wound up selling it to fund a Patterson revolver that I have. It's my Uberti Patterson. So that was the best decision I ever made. And then I bought that Brown Bess flintlock and loved it. I was going to hunt with it and stuff, but thing is that after I was shooting it out at the range and the amount of embers that come out of that gun, and I'm talking like start a wildfire ember, I just didn't feel comfortable taking it out and hunting with it, so I never did.
Yep. I mean,
but
that's putting that Brown Bess is a whole different animal.
I spit lube the patches when I was doing the patch, because when I was testing it in that video where I shot a clover leaf at 50 yards with it, I had to go out there and stomp those patches out, and I spit lubed them. I tried soaking the patches in boar butter, and it would ignite them every time. You go out there and they're just a burning ball of embers.
Oh, Serpent Hanzo says, Ethan said just get a rifle shop kit. They're easy to build. Laugh out loud.
Get a Ferguson.
Yeah. Serpent Hanzo has one that you'll enjoy here. P38 or P51 Mustang? P38 Lightning or P51 Mustang?
P38.
I'm a Lightning guy myself.
It's one of those. The P38 is a beautiful plane, but Mustang's going to win out because if I remember reading right, is the P38s had to be pretty high up in the air to really perform all that well. Same as the Thunderbolt.
Mm-hmm. The P38's the double fuselage, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's the Lightning. Well, a lot of those were made in Wichita.
But the P51, great multi-role fighter. P38 was, it had its bonuses. I used to have a flight simulator, and it was what the heck was it? It was IL-2 Stormovik, and then that company released one on the Pacific, basically the Pacific equivalent. But anyway, when I do like the missions where it was like a strafing run and fighting role, I'd always go with the P38 because they're great for ground attack. But if it was just straight like bomber defense or something, P51 every time.
Yep. Kathy West said, I'm very new to black powder. I don't know where to start.
Depending on where you want to go or what you want to do, we just kind of talked about the rifle portion of it. If you want to get into the revolver portion of it, you can never go wrong with the 51 Navy. It's a smaller caliber. It won't burn up as much powder. It's a little cheaper to shoot. And not a lot of recoil to them. Very little recoil. You shoot a maximum charge all day. It's like shooting a 22.
Bear in mind, caps are hard to find nowadays.
That's the thing. Caps are hard to find. And I think that's why there's such an interest in flintlocks recently in the black powder area. I should say the interest is getting higher in flintlocks is because caps are hard to find. Flints, well, you can buy them, or if you're do-it-yourselfer like me and Garrett are, you can go walk the river and find plenty of flint sitting down in the river.
Yep.
You get into flint napping.
If caps aren't an issue, that kind of changes the rifle dynamic because we were talking about starter flintlocks. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're wanting to start with a cap lock, quote-unquote, Hawken that they make today, that's not a bad way to start.
No.
Because flintlocks, they're a little more finicky on the beginner guns. Whereas cap lock, all it is smack the cap and away you go.
Right.
And so I like a CVA. I'm not going to handle it here, but right up there on that blonde one is a CVA mountain rifle. It's around a $300 gun. They quit making them in the 80s, but those are pretty decent. Not historically accurate, but pretty decent. Not bad.
I'm just curious. Now I need to go. I'm going to go over to Dixie and see what the price point is.
Oh, don't look for a Pedersoli, Hawken, if you're looking for a low price
Ooh,
point.
I know Pedersoli has gotten ridiculous.
I think they're close to $2,000. I might be wrong, but I think it's like $1,600.
Oh, let's see. Oh, that was the wrong thing. That was kits. So a Traditions Kentucky Rifle percussion kit right now is $395. So they haven't gone up too high. Oh, hey, they got a Pedersoli Magnum double barrel 10 gauge shotgun kit for the same price that I could have bought a fully completed one 3 years ago. I think they're up to $100 now. Let's see here. Yeah, you got a Pedersoli percussion kit 32 for $750. So this is their Kentucky style. They're all in the $750 range. And bear in mind, this is a kit. Here's an Invest Arms Hawken kit. 54.
Is that the Gimmer?
No, it's just it looks like the old Traditions.
Oh, the brass one.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks really like a layman. $550 on that. That's not terrible. Actually, that one by Invest Arms, that would probably be the one I would go with if you're going to go the percussion route. Just because I'm sitting here looking at it and it's not all that bad. Most of the hard work is done. Let's see. There's the Pedersoli Pennsylvania, which is $850, and they've got a 45 and a 32. And then they've got the Tradition St. Louis Hawken, which is $460. So yeah, they're not terrible. Well, let me go back to the completed ones. Let's see what they're going for here. All right, there's a holy Moses. The Sharps are 1,700. My God,
it's bad. It's really bad. That's why I haven't had much experience with one. I'm waiting for you to buy yours. That way I can shoot it.
Buy an original; it'd be cheaper.
I know, and that's not a joke.
No, it's not. Let's see. Oh, they got a Pedersoli Mauser rifle for 2,100.
Jeez.
Yeah. So here's an 1862 CS Richmond musket. I guarantee it's either Army Sport or Pedersoli. It's 1,300. I'm gonna guess that's Army Sport.
Man.
Yeah, made in Army Sport.
You know what's sad? A Kibler kit, a high-end American-made Kibler kit's cheaper than that.
Yeah. So I want to go to show all, so I don't have to go through.
That's why Kibler's kicking Pedersoli around the block nowadays.
Yeah, no kidding. So this one's a Jaeger percussion at 1,600, and I don't know who makes that Jaeger. Oh, it's Pedersoli. Okay.
Is it a wood trigger guard?
No, it's steel trigger guard, but it's a wood patch box with a percussion. No, that's wrong. Who would do that? That's sacrilege right there. So let's see here. There's a Dixie Hawken Invest Arms finished gun $650. So the kit, if I remember right, I said was $450. So you're saving $200 buying it finished. So that's probably Army Sport for $1,150 on a 1842 Springfield smoothbore. Full length Sharps paper cutter 1859 rifle is $2,000 almost. Let's see. There's
for $2,000.
Yeah,
you can go over to Turkey Creek 1823 and probably pick up a custom build.
Yep. Oh, there's
I picked up a custom build 1803 from him, made by him down in Oklahoma for around $1,800.
If you really want to get into it, here's a Smith carbine. That's an artillery model made by Pieta. And yes, Pieta does make percussion rifles, very limited amounts, but one of them they make is a Smith carbine, which if you're curious what the Smith carbine is, it is a break action breech loading percussion gun. It's 1545.
That's the first rubber bullet gun.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So they've got some Pedersolis here. They got a Pennsylvania rifle, $45,000, ready made. Let's see here. What else they got? They got a Pennsylvania, $1,000, more Pennsylvanias. Let's see. There's the Traditions Crockett rifle. I haven't seen those in forever. $585. A finished Traditions Kentucky is $525.
The Crockett rifle's almost $600 with tax now.
Well, that's just $585. That's just the before tax. Yeah, it'd be $600 with tax. Yeah.
Wow.
Let's see. A Pedersoli Rocky Mountain Hawken 54 caliber maple is $1,900. Walnut.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
And
you
it's
can go
not
to
even
Walnut.
that. It doesn't even have the correct slopes and stuff for Hawken.
Nope, and they're, if I remember right, they're all fast twist too.
Jeez.
Here's the one 54 caliber with a walnut. It's $1,495. Here's a couple of Enfields.
And
These
people
must
wonder why they're not buying the Italian stuff anymore. That's
yeah,
ridiculous.
it's getting ridiculously priced. These are some now they've gotten into some muskets. They must be Army Sport because they're still in about the $1,000 price range. Let's see, 3-band smoothbore $850. That's not bad, but smoothbore. Here's a 55 Springfield musket for $995. Old English shotgun 12 gauge maple $2,200. Holy Moses, who makes that? I bet that's Pedersoli. I don't know why it's in the rifle section. I didn't look at the shotguns. Yeah, it's Pedersoli.
Pedersoli stuff it's a step below American made. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
there's a lot of American made stuff, and they're charging more for it now.
Yep.
That's
And
ridiculous.
Pedersoli is one of those that's like, yeah, I'd buy a percussion, but flintlock I'm not real big fond of. Let's see here. There's a Pedersoli Enfield 1,300, so they're not terrible on those muskets. Remember those Baker cavalry shotguns they had, the little short back actions? They're 1,300 now. I remember when
Okay, guys, start with the CVA. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, the Traditions, you'll be fine.
Buy Kibler.
Yeah, it's right at, I think with tax it's like $1,150 for everything for a Kibler.
Now here's the Pedersoli one that looks like the Traditions one, and it's a Hawken 50 cal, and it's $875.
$875.
Yeah, and that's for the
Or a
all
brass Hawken.
Yep. Let's see. I guess shotguns are included on this one, but let's see here. Here's a Traditions mountain rifle, 50 caliber percussion. And this is with a mixture of iron and brass furniture, and it's $650. And you know what? It looks closer to a Hawken than them Pedersoli Hawkins do. Let's see here. Dixie Gunworks Magnum shotgun. I know that's made by Pedersoli. It's $1,425. I remember when they were right at $1,000. Let's see, 10 gauge, $1,495. The flintlocks, I know those are like in the $2,000 range. Coach gun, $1,375. Parker Hale volunteer rifle. That one's kind of a fancy one. That's $1,700. Let's see, let's go on down the line. There's a Pedersoli Scout shotgun percussion 12 gauge for $850, and it looks like somebody took a musket and sporterized it. Oh, that's ugly. That is downright ugly. A Lorenz rifle, $2,000.
Jeez.
Pedersoli Zouave is actually $1,100. That's not actually that bad a price. Whitworth rifles, $2,250. Let's see. Here's a finished Dixie Plains Invest Arms. It looks like a Traditions without the patch box on it, and they're $625.
Pre-COVID, they was $400.
Yeah. So, yeah. Things are not, God, you know what? I had a chance to buy a 5070. It was a Taylor's and Company 57 conversion.
1,700?
for, well, it was 1800, and here is the paper cutter version for 1750.
Yeah, about 1,700 is what I seen them going for, and that was when I was like, I can buy an original for about 12.
But I can't believe it. Yeah, this and it's not in stock, but this 10 gauge kit, Pedersoli kit, basically you have to do some woodwork on it, is $1,175. I remember when I was looking at buying one of these shotguns back in 2016, I think they were like 800. I think the 10 gauge actually was at 1,000. But my goodness, this is bad.
Mm-hmm.
This is really bad.
Tim O'Neill said InvestArms uses a European oak, flat sod, not quarter sawn, thermostat varnish for stocks. I'm a Dixie customer. Yeah, I think we've all had InvestArms. Was your first one InvestArms?
I still have an InvestArms. In fact, it's sitting on the other side of the safe there because I tried to use it to kill a mouse the other day. And I thought it had worked.
Mine.
So it's like I couldn't find my mouse traps. I just got back from Wyoming, and I had a little mouse in here, and I think he finally died from eating mouse poison because he had taken the packet of mouse poison that was in there and had taken that poison out and stashed it in every one of the holsters I had sitting in a box in front of this safe when I moved in. So I picked up holsters. I'm pouring out mouse poison like crazy. But anyway, so I wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, and that little sucker's over there chewing on the metal wire frame in front of my water heater. And couldn't find the mouse traps. So I thought, I'll kill him with a rifle. And I was like, I don't want to throw a ball right next to my water heater. So I thought, I'll just use a piece of paper towel and about 10 grains of powder. And I thought, no, I didn't want to ignite the paper towel and light my house on fire. So I thought, well, maybe the percussion cap would be enough to kill him with just the paper towel, no powder. So I wad up a ball, I shove it down in there, and I go over, boom, popped him in the head. I thought he was dead because he's sitting there laying there just spazzing out. I thought, I'll let him die and I'll throw him out. And about 15 minutes later, I hear the chewing again. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I walk over there, and I thought it's another mouse. No, here's this mouse with this black spot on top of his head chewing on the wire frame again. That rifle's still sitting there being waited to put in. And I thought, this would be a great time that I should have had a BB gun.
Give me a BB gun.
If I'd have walked over to my dad's, I could have.
I get a commentator here wrote something kind of interesting. He said, I just bought a full-size sedan with 100,000 miles and a V8. Cheaper than a Pedersoli. It's a Mercury.
Lord, I'm crazy about a Mercury. Going to buy me a Mercury and cruise it up and down the road. I mean, you remember that song.
Tim O'Neill said, I priced a 62 Fowler Track of the Wolf cheap. It was $2,000 for parts. Left hand inlet it yourself. Yeah, that's I'm a left-handed shooter all day long, but I don't shoot flintlocks left-handed.
Now I'm curious.
I shoot flintlocks left-handed. I don't have to have a left-handed flintlock. I had one for a while, and I found out that I was so used to shooting the right-handed flintlock that even though I was shooting left-handed, everything was backwards. It's like I didn't drop the front of the rifle to cock the gun, which everybody's like, you can't have a right-handed flintlock. You have to drop the front of the gun to cock it. I'm like, yeah, but after you shot it, you got to drop the front of the gun anyway. So what's the point?
So I'm going to go on Track of the Wolf. So I'm on their gun kit section. They only have 4 options for percussion. So I'll look at the trade rifles, the layman's. And that starts at $910, and that's for a kit. I don't know. Let's see. So that
I really got to get one of those.
It's a mostly inlet kit. You're going to have to do a lot of inletting yourself. You're going to have to seat your barrel lug by yourself. So when it's all said and done, if you have them do a lot of that work for you, you're looking at the same price as if you used to buy a Kibler.
Yep. So here's the question. And I've faced this question myself a lot here lately. Well, in the last couple of years. If I want to do this, which you and me have both been over these Dickert rifles, the Lehman rifle, the Hawken rifle, all the stuff they sell. And I even got a guy that'll build it for me probably if I ask him. Matter of fact, he already said he would. But do you really want that Lehman in a 50, or do you want a Hawken in 62?
You can get a Lehman up to 58.
Well, you can, on there you can. Because I think it's up to 50.
Because they've got the flintlocks and they've got the percussion guns. Whoops, I clicked on the wrong one. I don't want the Southern Mountain ones. Okay, let's see here. They're all 1H or 1 inch bores, barrels. So I guess I'm going to have to pick one or the other. Let's see. We can go up to 58. Yep.
Cool.
Go up to a 58 caliber on that Lehman. But the thing of it is, on that Lehman, with that really severe crescent moon buttstock, you want to make sure you have that perfectly placed in your shoulder. Do not shoot it like you shoot your granddaddy's shotgun.
Shoot across sideways.
You put that sucker to where it's sitting, the bottom of that thing is in your armpit. Because if you don't do it that way, you're going to have a nice hole here and a nice hole down here because that sucker is going to bite into your shoulder.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to shoot them across your body, or you, like I said, you have to chicken wing it and put them out there, because they will bite.
Yep. Plowboy said he wants a 54 rifled barrel, so that's either a Woods Runner or Colonial American. Yeah, I'll say this. The Colonial was the first gun they brought out, so it's a little more complicated, as in you have to actually drill. One of the harder parts actually is drilling the pin, the holes for the pins, which doesn't sound like it should be that hard, but it is. The Woods Runner is literally a snap it together and go. Woods Runner is a shorter gun with some brass fittings and a wood patch box, whereas the Colonial's the traditional big, I mean, it's a big gun. And if you want to see a review on the Woods Runner, Ethan has one, a review on our channel. If you want to see a good review on the Colonial, Jake, Everything Black Powder, has one on his channel. I think on a 54 too. So.
Oh, did they drop the? Oh, there they are. I'm gonna say I thought Track. I'm about to say that Track dropped the Hawkins, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, their Hawking kits are up to 1,100. I remember when they were 800.
Yeah, that's where it starts at 1,000 and goes up nowadays. Donald Benson says it is bad. It wasn't that long ago you could get most of those guns that Duke listed for under 1,000.
And they go up to 58 too. So I gotta see if this other one goes up to 62.
Yeah, I was talking to Turkey Creek about building one, and I think he had a place he could order the barrel separately. So what he was doing was, like, he orders a lock piece here and a piece there, and then a stock here and a barrel there, and then he doesn't build just off of one kit usually, I don't think.
So yeah, currently the only thing they've got in stock. So if you used to build one in stock, see the base price is $11.74, and so let's do this. Let's go to a 54 caliber, 42-inch barrel, because they're actually a little cheaper than the shorter barrel by $5. The only wood stocks they've got in stock is Fancy Maple, so that's going to jump the price up 100, or not quite, $40. $40 there. Let's see. All the rest of it is in stock. Okay. All that's in stock. Let's recalculate the price. So $12.09. Because we had to go with fancy stock because
on what gun?
So that's on a Track of the Wolf Hawken kit.
Okay. I was about to say, if you're going for a Lehman, get the cheapest wood and then paint the stripes on it.
Yeah. So this one is Fancy Maple. So yeah, like I said, it's another $40. And so that's the base price. Now, let's see if we're gonna add in options. So the vent and the nipple. If you have them do the work, let's see. Oh no, that's the tools. Let's see. He'll have you put them on the barrel. Oh, they don't even have the option anymore. Let's see. There it is. That's what I'm looking for. All right, labor. Install the breech plug. Mill dovetail. Install the sights. Install the lug staples. Let's see. Screw set. Yeah, I've got all that. See the vent, underlug options. So if we recalculate it to have them install all the stuff on there, you up to $1,364. So that's on $1,000 kit from Track of the Wolf. So like I said, you're probably better off going with Kibler at that point.
Yep. Tim O'Neill said, I've spent 1 month remodeling the stock of the finished Invest Arms rifle, dehorned it with a forward slant and the butt stock for an offhand rifle. First time I shot it, black and blue for a week.
They will let you know when you don't hold them right.
Yeah. I'll say this too. One thing that a lot of people don't point out when you're getting into these kits and these higher end or custom guns, the larger the caliber per size of the gun, a lot of people don't discuss this, the lighter, more nimble, and easier the gun is to point. Like if you're going for a Southern Mountain Rifle, if you want the lightest, easiest handling gun, go in 45. A Woods Runner in 54 is light. Colonial in 58 is what's the lightest. It's a weird thing to think about, but the more metal they take out of that barrel, the easier she is to handle. Because I handled Turkey Creek's Southern Mountain Rifle in 45, which he has a beautiful video where he blacked it, bone blacked it, the stock, and then he rust blued the barrel, and it's like the whole thing was just black. But that gun was so much lighter than my 36. Not that I think that's a terrible thing, but it was an easier handling gun.
And if you can get a swamped barrel, but you're going to pay.
All Kiblers are swamped.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you go any other area, you're going to pay dearly for a swamped barrel.
But it makes all the difference in the world for handling. Yeah. I mean, I didn't believe it till I got my hands on one. Now I own one. And that's, if I got to go hunt a squirrel, I wouldn't take a 22 now.
That's one downside to Hawkins and Layman's is they use straight barrels and they are front heavy.
Oh, yeah. Because Turkey Creek had that one built to original specs with 1.25 inches, I think. It might have been just 1 inch, but it might have been 1.25 inches across the barrels. That thing was a chunk now. That thing was just, and he built it to original specs, so it weighed the exact same amount and everything. I was like, wow.
Because Tom Tobin, whenever we decided to get into him on this chat, he had a 28-pound Hawken rifle. 28 pounds.
And he had a speed loader.
Yeah.
So do you think that he shot both Espinosas with that one rifle?
I wouldn't be surprised. Well, there's different accounts. And that one book that I've got on the Espinosas give both the accounts. He shot the one for sure. But he also says it's likely that the cavalry soldiers that were attached to him shot the other Espinosa because he was running away. But it's very likely that Tom Tobin shot that kid too. And it was a kid. He was a young kid. He was in his teens.
Well, they say he could shoot fast with that leather capper.
Because he had a leather capper. And one thing that has been going on for a long time is that they would carry balls in this wood block. Mm-hmm. They were already patched. You just put them over the muzzle, punch them down in, and you were ready to go. So I could see him doing it. He probably grabbed his powder horn, pulled the thing off, dumped in his charge, and been shooting long enough. He could probably count and tell you how good of a, when it was full enough. Throw that block up on there and ram it down in, cap it. He might have done it.
Yep, very possible. Stephen M. Mann said yes. Remember, what would Ashley do? Yeah, he's had that project in his mind for a long time, trying to build the perfect flintlock rifle. I believe one of his specifications that Stephen had on that was it needed to be a rifle, but he needed like either a Charleville or a 1803 Harper's Ferry or a Brown Bess military lock. Throw a lot of sparks with a big lock, which would be kind of cool.
If I remember it, they had a lot of Lehmans.
Mm-hmm.
Because that one wagon blew up with a bunch of Lehman rifles.
Well, I don't think Lehman came after Hawken by quite a while. Like maybe 34 or 5 before they really took off, I think.
What the heck was I thinking of then? Or was I thinking Northwest Trade Guns?
Well, I know they had trade guns and one Hawken maybe, but
I thought they had Lehmans.
Well, what's stuck in my mind is 1803s, but that's not them. That's the guys that fought the Ricker. Not them, the ones that fought the Ricker. The guys that came. Let me see. Look up when did Lehman start. I want to say 35 to 38. He was late to the game. William Schlossler says, "Hey guys."
Because I'm trying to think. Because I thought they really got their name from where they were made.
Well, Henry Lehman was the maker.
Well, I thought that was Lehman, Pennsylvania. Why am I having brain farts tonight?
Henry Lehman made them.
They were made in Lancaster.
Yeah, Lancaster style guns, but with brass.
Yeah, they're made in Lancaster. What the heck? What gun was I thinking of that they had with them?
Well, Lewis and Clark took some form of 1803 Harper's Ferry.
Right, I knew they had
1795. The more common guns are. We talked about this once. A guy named Milk was building some guns. Then at the time they might have took some. There was talk about rifles. Remember, there was talk about rifles from the pits, but I think it was smoothbores. I don't know if it was like necessarily.
We had this discussion. I did some reading on it, and for whatever reason, I cannot think of.
Well, I mean, they did have the Super Hawken, but that was like on trip 2, and that was one Hawken, as far as I know, not a bunch of them.
Because what was the one that the wagon blew up and destroyed a bunch of them?
That wagon blew up and destroyed a bunch of their traps and stuff. And so they went to Hawken to have goods made.
Right. Or am I having a brain fart and thinking of something totally unrelated?
I don't remember talking exactly what they had, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't Lehman's yet. Fusees or Northwest guns, I would imagine, or Brown Besses even.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been a lot of Brown Besses on the market right then. They started hitting the market a little bit later. I want to say that was in the 1840s when the Mexican army started getting them, because that's when they really started becoming a trade item. Was some of them were coming from Mexico.
It's in the book, wherever the book is.
Let's see.
I don't remember where they have my book. Where is my Hawken book?
Okay.
I don't know where it went.
1834 is when he got started, so it was not him.
Yeah.
Well, why am I having a brain fart?
Well, Dickert, there's Dickert, there's Milk, there's Hawken, there's, of course, your trade guns. There's a couple more of those Lancaster-style guys. We're making them, too, and sticking them out, which Dickert's one of those Lancaster-style guys.
I know a lot. Well, most, if not all, the guys brought their own guns when they went on that, too, but I'm trying to think. He took some up there for trade. I wonder if they're Northwest trade guns, and that's probably what they were.
Trade rifle. Well, there's also a British trade rifle at the time. That's
Right.
why can I think of it? It's not commonly known. It's named after one of the cities. It's like a Birmingham trade gun,
Right.
but I couldn't swear to it. But it's a rifle. Anyway, that was a rabbit hole.
Yeah. I'm having a brain fart. I am totally having a brain fart tonight. See, that's what happens. I get to reading too much, and then suddenly we come back to something, and I have total brain farts because I can't remember what the heck. Let's see here. Yada, yada, yada.
I mean, the Northwest gun would probably be available, but I don't feel like that's something he would have in his hands starting out. Let's put that.
No.
Because he's not coming from Canada, for one thing. There's a Wilson trade gun.
That's true.
Saboteur
Maybe
said
actually.
Tyon.
What's that?
Tyon. Tyon.
Oh, trying.
I was about to say I didn't know it.
Well, no mention of. Maybe he didn't. I might be thinking of something totally different.
Well, there's a trade deal that went on, and I know what you're talking about but I don't think it was Trip 1.
Because they
There was
weren't really.
A trade deal where they took a bunch of guns, not to the Eureka or anybody like that, but to like a northern Wisconsin tribe or a man, I can't like a northwest Wisconsin something that had moved over. I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember what it was either. It's been a while.
Sorry, guys. I had total brain fart on this one. But
Well, it's probably because you just hit 2 hours and 30 minutes.
we had this discussion before.
We've had
have
it a
had
bunch
this discussion
before, but we've been out of the fur trade talk for so long, I can't remember. We went to Indian Wars.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to say, I don't know. I ain't got a clue. If he even took a bunch of guns up there, he might not have.
I think those were company guns. Okay. In my mind, I'm picturing Hawkins rifles, but right across the road, one building to the side, is where the company traded the guns of Ashley's company's guns were bought across the road. I know they were because he didn't buy them from Hawkins.
Right.
Okay. All right, here we go. Here's a good question. Change our mind here. A Saboteur said Belgium copies. But William Sausage said, were the repeater rifles at the boxcar fight the same as Weiler's mounted infantry used in the Civil War?
Boxcar fight.
I think he means the wagon box fight.
You
but
mean
that
wagon box fight?
That's what I'm thinking. I don't think there were. I've been through the wagon box fight a lot here lately, and I honestly think everybody there was armed with the trapdoor. Yes, he said yes, the wagon box fight.
The guns that they had at the wagon box, Allen conversions,
Mm-hmm.
Colt,
Type 2s.
some Colt conversions. Or no, excuse me, take that back. Not Colt conversions, some Colts. They had Spencers. They had a
Who had
Henry's.
the Spencers?
The civilians.
Oh, okay.
Give me 1 second.
I just did a deal on it today, and the guy was talking about running around, and basically he was dumping off 100 rounds of ammunition to each man every 3 hours.
Right. Okay, where did you go? Wagon box fight. Wagon box fight. The wagon box fight.
It's right. Well, I thought I knew where
Got
mine
in
was.
order, so I don't know where they're at.
Rifles of the Civil War. Hang on. I don't know where mine's at either. Huh. Oh. Ah, found it. Not put the guitar down. Jerry Keenan, wagon box fight. Episode of Red Claws War. Ha! Beat you. Hey, how come yours bluer than mine?
Because I've got a new webcam.
Okay. I bet if I turned my main light on, it would be blue. It's still not quite as blue.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see.
Now
here.
she's blue.
Okay.
What are we looking for? Guns? A fight at the corral. Okay. Private Gibson did the report on it.
Right. Oh, yeah, because Janess stood up there and was standing. I was told to get down. He says, I know how to fight Indians, and took a bullet to the forehead.
Yep. I was amazed to find out how many of the guys there actually were at the Fetterman deal that came out. A lot of the guys there had dragged the bodies out of the Fetterman massacre.
Let's see.
What I found interesting was where Gibson said that since he had been at trying to build Fort Phil Kearny over the year and a half prior to that, he'd been in 12 engagements. I never heard about those engagements, I guess.
Yeah, but probably small skirmish, little hit and runs. Okay. This one doesn't get as much into it.
What are you looking for?
I was looking for the list of guns that they used.
Oh, hang on. Well, a lot would be told if you knew exactly what units were there. Because I didn't remember a cavalry unit being there.
18th U.S. Infantry.
Yeah.
So I was trying to find the list of the civilian guns that were used.
And as far as civilians go, was there one scout or two? I mean, why would you need a scout on a woodcutting
I think
detail?
there was 3 or 4 civilians. It might have been 2. But I don't think I'm going to find it in this book. I'm going to have to grab my other book here. Yeah, nope, it's not going to be in that one.
Okay, all right. So, ammunition found, iron-tipped, hand-forged tent pin, 58 caliber mini ball incoming from native side, fired 52 caliber Indian ball incoming from native side, fired 50-70 450 cartridge cases, 50-70 450 bullets, 3-groove rifling from the M1866 second Allen conversion outgoing, 36 caliber conical ball U.S. fired outgoing, 44 caliber conical balls U.S. fired outgoing, live unfired 50-70 450 cartridges, and that's it. So they were still using cap and ball pistols.
There we go. 8 hours in hell. 423. 18th U.S. Infantry, William. Not the 16th. 18th. Okay, there's Hayfield fight. And I want to go to the chapter 8 hours in hell. Because that is...
The 27th Infantry was there as well.
Yeah. Well, the 27th used to be the 18th.
Okay.
So there was 3 battalions. Was it the 3 battalions, 18th U.S. Infantry. They got broken up and then turned into the 27th. Because Fetterman would have become a captain on the 27th, and he couldn't wait to do that because then he wouldn't be under Carrington's command. Because everybody was hating Carrington up there because Carrington's running just a defensive operation. Because Carrington knew that if they got overrun, they'd be screwed. And then he goes out and, we're going to go offensive, and they all got killed.
Okay, so would the wagons have been driven by infantrymen?
No, they were often driven by civilians.
Okay. There was obviously some freight wagons there that were not army wagons, right? There's freighter wagons.
No, there was a lot of civilians at Fort Phil Kearny.
Well, I know in the actual wagon circle at the wagon box fight.
Oh yeah. Most
two
of
wagons
were
at least
civilians.
were large freighters, so those would have been civilian.
Yeah, most of them were civilian because they hired civilians to cut the wood, and then the soldiers could stand around and cover them. The soldiers did cut wood, yes, but they had a lot of civilians. That's what Portuguese Phillips, he was working for them. There was quite a few civilians there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. I know this one gets into it. So, according to this, the natives did have quite a few guns. They had pistols, muskets, carbines, rifles, shotguns, and bows. But there was one of them, I think it was at this fight, where there was a civilian there that had 2 Spencers, Henry, and 3 Colts, and was considered the best marksman.
Where at now?
I think it was at Wagon Box. He was considered the best marksman, and as soldiers would be injured or something, they would give him their guns.
Battlefield ammunition. Cartridge components of the 50-74-50 variety are the most common occurrence archaeological record.
Let's see. Got hot reception from breech-loading rifles of the troops and the Spencers and Henrys for the citizens. Okay, so obviously I went too far.
"23 cartridge cases of 50-70 government type were found between 1993 and 1994. Now this is interesting. They have the narrow. Oh, that's interesting. They have the narrow firing pin. So that means those were some of the first 10,000 guns made. They have the original long narrow firing pin. Very interesting.
Okay, let's see here.
They say that if you look at the cartridges that were used there, the guns were used so much that the firing pins, you can tell which rounds were fired first in the battle and the end of the battle because the firing pins have started to dull.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Somewhere in this chapter, see, the poor shots were told not to shoot, set to work for loading spare guns for the ones that were good marksmen. Well, let's see.
That's interesting. They found cases from 5650s and 5656.
Yeah. The 5656 were probably the ones the civilians had.
Yeah, those are old. And still digging through here. The 5650s. 2 Spencer cases from Wagon Box have markings on their case heads. One is to be a 5652 case with a head stamp for the V&V Co., which is probably FV&V Co., which stands for Fitch Van Grooves.
That might have been that split breech. One of them, they talk about a split breech Remington rolling block.
Also found are 36 caliber conical bullets with land and groove marks from rifling. There's also found a 36 caliber round ball. 2 conical bullets are 32s. Somebody had
find out I was in the wrong chapter.
Somebody had a 49 pocket model.
Yeah.
There's 2 32 caliber round balls. There's even a recently found 22 caliber round. That could be from later.
There's 4 unnamed civilians. Max Littman listed 5. Let's see, it was William Holmes, Tom Mallory, R.S. Blavet, Frank Peach, and Frank Gordon. That was the civilians. And then R.J. Smith. Let's see. Now the 27th Infantry. Okay, so it's not the 18th at Wagon Box. It's 27th.
Yeah.
We're armed with a new, which used to be the 18th Infantry. So, Allen Springfield rifle musket, which they'd received the day before. They haven't had a chance to practice them. They got them the day before. They had 7,000 rounds in the wagon. Civilians had other sorts of arms. R.J. Smith had 2 Spencer carbines and 2 6-shot Colt revolvers. Tom Mallory had 2 firearms over his own, a Spencer and a Henry. He was an excellent marksman and was therefore provided with rifles of the dead and wounded, all of which he kept hot from his position behind a pile of ox yokes. William Holmes had a Spencer, Frank Peach and Frank Gordon had Henry repeaters. So these guys are all Henrys and Spencers and Colts.
Yeah.
Now, if we go back to Hayfield, which I'm going to do that. All right, 379.
Now, this is interesting. 9 conical bullets with 2 grease grooves and 1 ball believed are 50 caliber. A 50 caliber conical?
Sharps.
Oh, yeah. 7 lead balls have been classified as 44 caliber revolver rounds. They show sprue projections. Those are civilians.
Yeah.
They're not swaged. From their molding stage, ring impressions from contact with ramrods from having been fired. Both attackers and defenders would have had access to 1860 Army Colts using this ammunition. Haven and Belden. They quote in Haven and Belden. 2 lead balls appear to be 38 caliber revolver rounds. So obviously 51 Navy or Remingtons. And they're unfired rounds.
See, inside
4 conical 38.
23 soldiers and 12 civilians. So when I say 18th U.S. Infantry there, I'm not completely wrong. They were changed to the 27th in 1867.
Yeah. Livestock shoes, nails, utensils, canteens have been found. Tent pegs.
Zeke Colvin carried an Enfield that he'd picked up at Wilson's Creek. Burnett and Howard had Spencer carbines, Wheeling a Spencer rifle. Duncan and Little had Winchester rifles.
Henry's.
Or Henry's. Al Colvin and Henry repeater.
What's the matter?
And they must have had some of the very first
66s.
Because
they differentiated?
Because then Al Colvin has a Henry.
Yeah.
So they had probably the first 66s to hit the market. William Hayne, which would make sense because they got up there to the Montana goldfields pretty quick. Had a Ballard breech loader. All had Colt sidearms and several had double barrel shotguns. Burnett and Layton's double barrel 10-gauge shotgun loaded with charges of 16 buckshot. Holy criminelli. So somebody needs to fund either Garrett or me so we can get a double barrel 10-gauge Pedersoli off of Dixie Gun Works, and we can put in 16 buckshot and see how much that does.
I have a double barrel. Well, Caleb has Whitneyville made 10-gauge shotgun muzzleloader,
But it ain't got hammers on it.
Nope, it needs them. The locks work. They just need hammers put on them.
Okay. So, yeah, looks like there's mostly Henry's and Spencer's were probably the two most common that were up there in that area. It never fails. Every time we do a chat, Red Cloud's War is going to come into it.
Yep. I know because I've been doing a lot of study on that one here lately.
And
I like how they said that.
Garrett's not losing his mind. He's trying to get his camera in focus.
Yeah. I can go to settings, touch up my appearance, All right. I don't know. I may have to. It may be. I need a camera myself.
Clean your lens.
Oh, it's not that. I've done it before. It's when I rolled back, I leaned back, it went out of focus.
Oh, everything's out of focus.
Yep. I might have to start thinking about calling it a night anyway. It's 11:30 here.
Yeah, we've only been going for 3 hours.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, we'll cut it off here at the 3-hour mark. If anybody that's still with us has any questions, comments, concerns. How many we got left in here?
30.
We're doing pretty good for this late.
Yep.
I know a lot of people are starting to sign off.
Yep. Louisiana Gray said they were laying down some cover fire. Well, they sure got plenty of practice time that day. Yeah, they shot a lot of rounds. That's no joke.
They had 7,000 rounds inside that wagon box.
Yep. And they shot a lot of them.
30,000 rounds they got delivered.
Yep.
It was a lot of rounds that got delivered with them guns. But when people ask, well, why didn't they jam like the guns that Custer had jammed? It's like, well, they were new and out of the box. Custer's had sit in leather for several weeks.
That's exactly right.
I got to grab a Coke here.
Kent said, great show, fellas. Yeah, I'm about to not make it.
Well, can you make it to the 3-hour mark?
Yep, that's 7 more minutes. I can make it that far.
This went by so fast. The last few minutes are going to drag out slow.
See, if I got up here, I'd get in focus. Almost.
Kind of.
I used to be able to fix it down here in my settings, but then it got to where it doesn't do that anymore. It's funny, I'm set for 1080, but I'm on streaming in 720.
That's the stream settings.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I looked into that, and you have to get the high dollar premium.
Haha.
Yeah, mine only let me go to 720.
Aha, I flipped around. Now I'm facing the other way.
It looked the same to me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
How about now?
Yeah.
Can I move Duke? No, I can ban him from the studio, though. That'd be mean.
Yeah, ban me from my own show.
Ban you from your own show.
That's about as bad as getting lost in your own museum.
Carrie Stottlermeyer said, I'm just waiting to punch the clock and go home, getting paid to sit and watch you guys.
There's worse things you could do.
Louisiana Gray said, yep, you look pretty tuckered out there. Yeah, Saboteur said, I'm on the side of where a big chunk of those rounds didn't hit squat besides the grass.
Well, you got a point there, Sabater. But when you think about it, there's 800 Indians and they can only kill four people total. I think their bullets and arrows weren't hitting squat either.
Yep.
And that's the thing for something that was there were so many personnel involved that this one should have been, a knockout, either a complete massacre of the soldiers or a heck of a lot of natives that got
Barry used to say it's hard to surround a man with a Barkin 38 in his hand. It's hard to surround a couple hundred soldiers with 7,000 rounds of 50 caliber 70 ammunition raining down on you.
Yeah.
That's big bullets and they're moving pretty good clip. And those rifles are easy to use.
What was it that, I just read off? It was like 20-some soldiers and 10, 12 civilians. So
Was that all there was? I didn't read that part very clearly.
23 soldiers and the 10, 12 civilians. So if you figure there's 10 civilians and 23 soldiers, that's 33 against 800.
Yep. I do know that they got so hot they couldn't open the doors on their guns.
Yeah.
So that's they couldn't touch the
but
and they definitely weren't wasting any water on them because they didn't have much of that.
Yeah, and Sabater, we need to get him on here one of these nights. But Sabater's right. Yeah, there were those that kind of got bored. They're sitting there like, "Oh, this is a waste of time for 20 some odd guys, and you can't even get within range." But I
thought it was the howitzer that drove them away. But
at the end of the day, yeah, there was that drove away the most of the force. But they couldn't get within range because them 50-70s apart. They did get close at Wagon Box because the Wagon Box is located. On the edge of a little slope that comes down.
Yeah, and
so they were sneaking up on the back of that slope and shooting arrows and bullets. They called them the snipers. The soldiers referred to them as the snipers. But it took 8 hours for the Army to decide to send out a howitzer.
Yep.
So those 23 men were in 8 hours of hell waiting for the higher ups to organize a relief party to come out with a howitzer.
Yep.
And this is not just at Wagon Box. It also happens at Hayfield. It's the same thing. Them guys are fighting for their lives all day.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Army decides to show up with a howitzer just about sunset.
Yep. And I don't know. I just know that those guys that they talked about at the very first of the battle, when they first headed out there, all of them wanted revenge for Fetterman. When they saw them natives lining up on horseback out there, the one guy said, "This wasn't the same look of revenge I'd seen before. This was a look of fear."
Yep. Well, they were kind of overwhelmed.
But I mean, it's just
But there was, they in a way up at it was at the Hayfield fight. They got a little bit of satisfaction because there was a one chief that come riding down. They shot him, and they went out, and the one, I think it was a sergeant, went out and grabbed that chief and drug him back in.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't going to let the natives reclaim him, and then that started another offensive there. But these two fights were, they were major, even though in reality neither side really accomplished much. I mean, the natives didn't succeed in killing these soldiers, and the soldiers didn't really take out a bunch of natives. The soldiers succeeded in staying alive.
Yep.
But I'm kind of like Sabater. Really, it's a draw. If anything, it's a minor victory on the side of the soldiers, just because they came out of it alive.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a pretty major victory to come out of it alive. But Sabater just commented, he said, like Garrett said, most of the men there cleaned up after Fetterman and didn't want to end up like them. I'd fight hard too. Yeah, they knew. Yeah, you got the ammunition, you got the guns, and you can run them. Well, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, and that's the thing at Wagon Box. Those men had cleaned up at the Fetterman.
Mm-hmm.
Because these 27th, they were 18th U.S. Infantry when Fetterman got whacked. They had seen what had happened, and most of them took the laces off their boots, tied them into loops around the triggers of their guns, so that if they got overrun, they just stick that long barrel in their mouth and grab a toe on that string, and that's all she wrote.
That is documented account of them setting up to do that before it even started.
Started the fight, they did that and said we're not going to be, because it was assumed that the soldiers at the Fetterman fight were mutilated before they were killed.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely the mutilation was done after they were already dead.
Soylent Green said it says they lost a large number of horses and mules. Were they killed or stolen or both? Well, they were outside the wagons.
Yeah.
So I imagine they just let them go. I ain't going to be the guy that volunteers to hold the horses.
When it comes down to that, it's like you've got the small, and I don't know how many of y'all have been to the wagon box fight site. It's not a big area. You are not going to put all your horses and mules and stuff in there and be able to fight, because as they get shot, they're going to be falling down on top of you. This is not a big corral.
Mm-hmm.
Not a very big corral at all.
And not only that, when the gunfire starts, they're going to stomp you to death.
Yeah. So, in fact, it's just spaced out enough where you pretty much have a guy at the junction of each of those wagons,
Mm-hmm.
and, that'd be the shooting spot. Now, up at the hayfield, they had taken precaution. They'd bermed up. They'd packed dirt up close to those wagons for a little added defense, which probably saved their lives from being burned to death, because the natives set fire to the hay, and that fire was coming at that wagon box corral. And then
they grazed her out.
10, 20 feet, burned out and quit because they had taken the dirt and burned it up. And then also the activity around the corral had packed the grass down.
Well,
so
the dirt they burned up was full of manure.
Yeah.
And it about gassed them when that stuff, because that stuff's pretty potent when it catches on fire. If you've been in a grass fire in a cow pasture, that about gassed them.
They'll smolder.
Yep. Brandon Birch asks, here's a question. What would your firearm loadout be if you all were there?
At that point in time, you could get, for like the revolvers, paper combustible cartridges were pretty common. There's not a lot of round ball. Now, I'm not saying that totally wasn't, because Garrett just read off there. There's
round ball. Somebody had a 49 pocket model, obviously, or something similar, which wouldn't be too far out of for a civilian. That'd be pretty common.
Pistol of some kind. So, if I had that, I'd probably be going with the self-contained little paper cartridges, just because they were available. A little easier to load, but for rifle, I think I would go with a Henry. And you don't have the knockdown power, but the thing is, Henry had a double firing pin, because if you read about the cartridges at that time period, they don't always go off on those rim fires. Spencer's don't always go off. Henry's often went off when Spencer's wouldn't, because Henry's had a double firing pin.
I would take the mostly just because I've had a whole lot of experience with it now at this point, and I can shoot it like they just shoot so sweet. I would go with the 66 Allen Type 2 conversion, mainly just because there's an basically unlimited amount of ammo there for it. And I'd go with the 60 Army if I could get my hands on it. Plenty of power, and for a revolver. That'd be my loadout. But Duke's always going to go more to the Henry and the civilian side, and I'm probably always going to go more to the trapdoor side.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I definitely want a Henry. If I couldn't have a Henry, I would have a Spencer.
How much of that ammo? I mean, you got to think, though, if they were there that long shooting that much, how long do you think before they ran out and picked up a Springfield?
Probably not long.
Yeah.
Because like I said, up there at the wagon box, the poor marksmen the guns were being taken away from them and given to the guys that they actually shoot. And the civilians, quite often the civilians out in that wild country could shoot better than most soldiers.
Well, those soldiers hadn't had but a couple weeks experience with those guns anyway.
Most of those soldiers, probably never fired a firearm before they got to the Army.
And never fired that trapdoor till they got there that day.
Yeah. And, it's just like the Army today. Most of them that joined today probably never had any experience with a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
So, things haven't changed, but, they, the civilians, like I said, they tend to be in the historical record a lot better shots than the soldiers are.
Well, soldiers didn't get any ammo to practice with.
And the soldiers, they show up. They may be out there for 1, 2, 3, maybe they're a good portion of their enlistment. Whereas the civilians, a lot of them, been out there for a long time.
Yep.
So like Portuguese Phillips, he'd been out there for a while. Not a real long time, but he had been out for a while. When you get in some of the scouts, like was it Frank Gerard? He'd been out there since the 1860s. So that's in the 1870s when he starts kind of running around doing stuff. But yeah, some of these other guys have been miners. They, like I said, been out in the West for a long time.
Yeah.
Ooh, excuse me. I was sitting here now, I was just reading all the bullets they found at the
Yeah, you're reading a book too.
box. Yeah. So I was sitting here trying to figure out. Largest they found was a 72 caliber round. So that was probably from a trade gun. It was actually probably from a Brown Best trade gun. 58 calibers, probably from Fetterman's. Let's see here. 56 caliber round ball. And a 56 caliber conical with 3 grease screws. That's probably a Sharps. Uh, 50 caliber rounds. Yeah. 7 from a 44 caliber revolver. Yeah, like I said, both would have access to this 1860 Army Colts.
Or Remingtons. Post-war West, probably Remington, to be honest.
But the thing of it is that anything revolver is probably going to be civilian or Indian. Infantry don't carry revolvers unless they have their little pocket pistol. And the officers would have a revolver. But a 36 caliber with 3 grooves. That one I have no idea.
Probably a conical for a 51 Navy.
Could be. Oh, yeah. Oh, now they say that's recent projectiles. Okay. Let's see.
Louisiana Gray said, "Sorry, Garrett. Looks like Duke's on coke. Staying awake just fine." Oh.
And then iron arrowheads, which they're going to be all over the place because that's what most of the natives had was bows and arrows. Every one of them had one arrow.
Mm-hmm. And they had fire arrows too that they launched inside the wagons, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's you kind of look at the armaments that they had. Most of the natives they had a bow with arrows, had some kind of handheld weapon, the knife, and then a tomahawk or war club. It was personal preference.
Make it pretty hard to get close.
Yeah, but both of them had their own types of. Well, what was I trying to say here? Natives had, basically we're going to go attack these soldiers. Y'all fight. And it's disorganized, or I should say organized chaos. And then the soldiers, are all lined up. Come to find out, guerrilla warfare not what I meant. Regular warfare don't fare up to guerrilla warfare very well.
Mm-hmm.
But it did on that day.
Yes, it did. And the day before.
At 2 different locations.
Yep.
All right. We've gone past our 3-hour mark by 9 minutes now because we got off on a tangent. So you could light it with flint and steel.
Yep.
Just about everybody had flint and steel on their person back in that day. Not a lot of people. Matches were common, but a lot of people carried flint and steel because your matches get wet, they're done.
And they had a lot of flintlock firearms too on that side.
So, but anyway, so yeah, I want to thank everybody for joining in. This was kind of impromptu because I didn't know if we was going to be able to do it or not, so I hadn't bothered doing any research on anything. But here in a couple weeks, I know Garrett wants to get into Cheyenne Outbreak, and I think we're going to try to do it this time. Hopefully that all works out. If it doesn't, we may do that show from Garrett's.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That is true. How about I forgot about that? Possibly build ourselves. We're possibly going to build ourselves a wagon bed and get some 66s, of which I have a couple out, and try that.
And you know what?
Nobody will be shooting back though.
Do you know of any people that have wagon boxes?
Yes, I do, but I don't know if it would almost be just as easy for me to build one to spec out of 1-inch pine.
Well, I was just going to say, what about a loan?
Oh, I could probably do it. Yeah, I know exactly where there's one that's a green, actually Army style wagon box, but I have to look into borrowing it back. It's not on a running gear, and it's about 40 miles away, so I'd have to haul it.
Well, yeah, but I was just thinking if you got a borrowable one or two.
Definitely one. We'll do something. That'll be in the
We'll make something
video.
work. And yeah, I'll dress up as civilian and Garrett can put on a sergeant's outfit.
I ain't putting on no blue soldier's outfit. What are you talking about? You and me are both civilians that day. I just stole a 66, and so did you.
Maybe we'll put Caleb in it.
My personal 66 is cut down, so it's a civilian 66, which didn't exist yet. But hey, I'll just pretend.
But anyways, so all right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming on here tonight. Like I said, here in a couple of weeks, we'll try to do. If we don't do that, we'll have something lined out. And then, are you guys going to have a chat next week?
That's the plan, unless something comes up.
Yeah. So, I
haven't got any guests, so
right. So yeah, we'll just say that for the next couple weeks, we're planning on chats, but just be ready that they may not happen.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on right now.
Yeah, we're just going to leave it at that. If Garrett wants to get into it more, he can, but we're going to leave it at that for now.
Well, are you ready to go?
We're going to call it. So once again, thanks everybody for coming on. We'll catch you on the next one. Until then, stay tuned. Keep your powder dry. We'll see you later.